Chapter 1626. Scarecrow. Yin Zhaoge raised his eyebrows slightly. Is it related to the Nailhead Seven Arrows book? Gao Shuebua nodded. That's right. According to the great Taoist master Xian Du and the goddess, this straw doll can help the goddess recover as soon as possible. It is not impossible. Yin Zhaoge pondered as he nodded slowly. After thinking about it, he smiled and said, Taoist Luya is apologizing, but it's not enough. I think there are other ways to make it up to Saint Mother. Tao Lord Luya was born in the Khanate world. He has experienced Tao Buddhism and demons. There is no doubt that his foundation is rich. Perhaps he really has something that the goddess is interested in. The so-called foundation did not only refer to personal strength. Most of the time, a secret that was unknown to others, something that others desired, could be more useful than a person's martial strength. The key was how to use it. Fighting for the immortal extermination array was the common interest of the entire Tao sect. The incongruence Divine Mother was severely injured because of Taoist Lord Luya. If she wanted to seek revenge on Taoist Lord Luya, she would need to use the immortal extermination formation. That would concern the entire Tao sect. However, if she decided not to seek revenge on Tao Lord Luya, it would be a personal matter, and the incongruence Divine Mother could decide for herself. Now that Gao Qingxian had relayed the news to the others, it was clear that Taoist monarch Luya's bargaining chip had moved the incongruence Divine Mother. Yin Zhaoge and the others naturally had no objections to this. With the immortal extermination formation, our Taoism's direct lineage is no longer as weak as before. Taoist Luya and the demon race would naturally try to mend their relationship with us. Yin Zhaoge shook his head slightly. However, we still have to be careful. At the same time of cooperation, friction and confrontation were unavoidable. After all, both sides had their own needs, and there were disputes and competitions between them. When Tao Lord Luya injured the incongruence Divine Mother and fought for the immortal extermination array, the Tao sect's direct disciple also killed the Yellow Wind monster and the Black Cloud's immortal, causing the demons to suffer heavy losses. 2 of the 9-headed bug's heads were smashed by Yang Jian and the monkey. It was heavily injured and on the verge of death. The demons had even more reason to retaliate. It was just that they had a deeper conflict with another opponent, the Western Pure Lands. Therefore, they were more restrained when facing the orthodox Taoism. This principle was also applicable to the Western Pure Lands. Now that the environment had just changed, everyone still needed to adjust and adapt. When everything was ready, a new round of conflicts and battles would erupt. To the direct disciples of the Tao sect, they were happy to have a stable period of time to continue to promote their own development and prepare for the upcoming situation. The main point is that apart from the Grand Supreme Elder, we have to quickly produce another Tao realm mighty figure. Yin Zhaoge lightly rubbed his temples. The Divine Mother is also a veteran heavenly lord who attained the Tao during ancient times. How far away is she from the Tao realm? Gao Shuebua and Long Xueji both shook their heads slightly. According to what we know, it's hard to confirm anything at the moment. We'll have to see how things develop in the next few years. After a slight pause, Long Xueji said, according to the words of the old ancestor, the Divine Mother's path towards the Tao had once seen the light of dawn, but it was severed. Now she has to start anew and walk another path. It is even more difficult, and the hope is even more uncertain. The old Grand Master he mentioned was naturally the Vine Sovereign, Li Ying, who had already passed away before the great calamity. I see. No wonder Tao Lord Luya was able to move her heart. Yin Zhaoge stroked his chin. I wonder who was the one who obstructed the Divine Mother's first path? After asking, Yin Zhaoge noticed that Gao Shuebua and Long Xueji's expressions were a little weird. I heard that it was the Manjushri Bodhisattva, Gao Shuebua said slowly. In other words, the Manjushri Heavenly Lord of the past. Yin Zhaoge blinked his eyes and laughed. The weather today is really nice. The Manjushri Heavenly Lord was one of the Jade Clear lineage's bigwigs during the ancient era. After the investiture of the Gods' War, he entered Buddhism along with the Samantabhadra cultivated deity, the compassionate cultivated deity, Qiansun, and the others. They transformed into the Manjushri Bodhisattva, and stood alongside the Samantabhadra Bodhisattva and the Guanyin Bodhisattva. After the Middle Era, the mystical mountains Tathagata Buddha and the Gautama Buddha transcended, and the Maitreya Buddha transformed the central blessed lands of Saha into the blessed lands of the White Lotus. Countless Buddhist Bhantes perished. The Manjushri Bodhisattva was one of them. Only, Yin Zhaoge didn't know that the Manjushri Bodhisattva had once obstructed the incongruence Divine Mother's path. I wonder if the incongruence Divine Mother interfered when the Manjushri Bodhisattva perished? Yin Zhaoge guessed maliciously. Between the Manjushri Bodhisattva and the Divine Mother, they might be fighting for the same treasure or the same fortune. You have it while I don't. Gao Shuebwa said. The deceased is already dead. There's no need to say anything more. It's just adding more troubles for the Divine Mother. Yin Zhaoge pondered for a while and said, while the great Taoist Xian Du is already prepared, the more grand heavenly immortals we have the better. He told Gao Shuebwa and Long Xueji about how Tao Lord Luya, the Dipankara ancient Buddha, the great Taoist Xian Du, and the others were waiting for a fortune in the 9 underworlds. It's still hard to say if the Divine Mother can make it in time. Gao Shuebwa listened attentively and said, after all, when this will begin depends on the results of the various parties. We should place our hopes on the great Taoist Xian Du. Yin Zhaoge nodded. For now, that's indeed the case. He looked at Gao Shuebwa and Long Xueji. Senior apprentice Sister Yu's condition has already stabilized. What I'm saying is that we shouldn't be in a hurry to wake her up. Let's continue searching for treasures like the blood cord stone pith, soul-shattering jade, and spirit ocean essence. If we can achieve the best outcome, it'd naturally be good. If not, we shouldn't force it. Gao Shuebwa sighed. Yin Zhaoge nodded and smiled. Right, Qinger has started sheathing edge and nurturing sword? Gao Shuebwa's expression relaxed slightly. Indeed. Her personality is still a little unstable. However, there's nothing wrong with sheathing edge and nurturing sword. It can be used to train her. Gao Qing was Gao Shuebwa's granddaughter. In the past, she was a rising star of the prime clear lineage of the roving Jade Heavens. Her reputation was rather resounding. Although her cultivation was slower than Fu Ting's, she was still younger than Fu Ting. The two were famed geniuses of the roving Jade Heavens and the world beyond worlds. Although they were inferior to Chen Qianhua, Nie Jingshan, Yu Yi, and He Mian, they were still monstrous talents that far surpassed the masses. Fu Ting had already pushed open the door to immortality and ascended to the true immortal realm. Gao Qing was slower than her. Still, she had already become a human exalt long ago, having caught up to her little uncle Long Hanhua. Considering how difficult it was for sword cultivators to improve in the first place, Gao Qing's rate of improvement was rather shocking. After attaining the human exalt realm, Gao Qing had started sheathing edge and nurturing sword as well. It seemed like her improvement had slowed down, as if she might stagnate for many years like her grandfather, Gao Shuebwa. Still, sheathing edge and nurturing sword was essentially a technique that pursued perfection, allowing the strong to become even more powerful. Those who could successfully nurture their swords were extremely rare. This meant that if they cultivated normally, they would also have a chance of pushing open the door to immortality based on their own talent and strength. Chapter 1627. It was difficult for a sword cultivator to improve. The higher one went, the more difficult it would be, especially after ascending to the celestial plane. Sheath edge and nurture the sword was a secret art, created by the ancestors of the prime clear lineage, for the sake of breaking through bottlenecks. Sharpening the knife will not delay the work of cutting firewood. The reason why he stopped now was to make his future path smoother. It was just that this technique was difficult to practice, and there were very few people who had the ability to practice it. Among those who had the ability but were not suitable, a portion of them had to be deducted. Such was the case for Long Xueji. Or perhaps if Yin Di cultivated in the Tao of the sword, he would similarly be unsuited for sheath edge and nurture the sword. As a result, there were even fewer people who cultivated the sheath edge and nurture sword. However, Gao Qing could cultivate this technique. Although she was temporarily stuck at the martial saint realm, and might even be stuck there for many years, she would be able to build a good foundation for the future. The advantages outweighed the disadvantages. In the blink of an eye, 100 years have passed, and a new generation has gradually grown up. Yin Zhaoge said emotionally, I heard that another rising star has appeared in the roving jade heavens these past few years. His talent and potential not inferior to that of senior apprentice Uncle Long and senior apprentice Sister Yu back then? This is truly worthy of celebration. As compared to the two brothers Gao Xuebua and Long Xueji, Yin Zhaoge was very young. Still, the two of them did not feel that there was anything wrong with him commenting on the newly emerged geniuses of Taoism with the tone of a senior. Long Xueji continued Yin Zhaoge's words with a natural expression. It is a good piece of metal. Still, it still needs to be tempered before it can be forged into steel. Congratulations, everyone. Gao Xuebua also said. In recent years, didn't the realm beyond Avalon also have geniuses that shocked the world? And of Broad Creed Mountain. Yin Zhaoge smiled. In the words of senior apprentice Uncle Long, that child still needs to be polished. There are also some that have been polished. A smile appeared on Gao Xuebua's face as well. Even before the Great Calamity, it was rare to see so many human exalts preparing to push open the door to immortality. This is a coincidence, Yin Zhaoge said. Also, there will definitely be an order. It can't be said to have pushed open the immortal door at the same time. It will still depend on one's fate. As Gao Xuebua had said, after many years of accumulation, Broad Creed Mountain's reserve of talent was about to undergo a major surge. Not only had Yuan Zhengfeng just successfully pushed open the door to immortality not long ago, Fang Zhuan, Ying Longtu, Si Kongqing and Xia Guang were also following closely behind him. Although Ahu wasn't a disciple of the Broad Creed Mountain, he had also been a human exalt for many years and was preparing to push open the immortal door. If nothing unexpected happened, it was possible that more than 5 true immortals would appear in the Broad Creed Mountain's lineage in the next few years. This number was almost the same as the number of immortals in the roving jade heavens in recent years. It was no wonder that Gao Xuebua exclaimed in admiration. In the entire sky beyond skies, other than the Broad Creed Mountain, there were only 3 more true immortals, Fu Ting, He Shixing, and Bai Tao. After years of silent accumulation, the Grandmasters of the Grandmaster Martial Saint level had finally begun to gradually break through to the immortal realm. Although it was still too early, more people would challenge the pure profound tribulation in the future. Broad Creed Mountains Shijun, Bright Connection Valleys Xiao Ai, Golden Court Mountains Long Hanhua and Tang Yonghao, and ingenious Flying Peaks Red Lotus Cliffs Mengwan had all already ascended to the human exalt stage, beginning to silently accumulate their strength. Other than that, Wang Pu of Jade Capital Crag, Zheng Mo of Cloud Pavilion Mountains Profound Remnant Locale, and the others were the same. The pure profound tribulation was extraordinary, and failure meant death. Therefore, many people would be stuck at the boundary between immortal and mortal, and they would be stuck for many years. This was an objective rule, just like Chaojia, Luzhingu, Bai Tao and the others. The closer one got to the Tao realm, the more difficult it would be. At this level, whether one could ascend to the next level didn't just depend on one's own aptitude, but also external conditions. Now that Taoism was gradually developing and prospering, various treasures, opportunities, and supreme martial arts were far more abundant than before. Objectively speaking, it greatly reduced the difficulty of a martial art practitioner's improvement and increased the probability of a breakthrough. However, Fang Zhuan, Ying Longtu, and the others said that there was hope in the near future, so they still had to be careful. Without sufficient confidence, they wouldn't dare to attempt it recklessly. As Yin Zhaoge said, it wasn't realistic for many people to leap through the Dragon's Gate at the same time. There would definitely be someone who would leap first. Perhaps many years had passed between these two events. However, the current Orthodox Taoism, the current Sky Beyond Skies, and the current Broad Creed Mountain were all brimming with vigor. After accumulating for so long, it was time for them to bear fruit. After this wave of eruption, no one knew when a similar large-scale eruption would occur again. However, tsunamis weren't common, while rivers flowed for a long time. The Broad Creed Mountain, that was already on the right track, possessed a healthy mechanism to produce blood. talents would continuously emerge. It was a similar situation for other Taoism legacies. At that time, perhaps the Golden Age would truly descend. However, before that, Yin Zhaoge and the others still had to work hard. After chatting with Gao Xuebua, Long Xueji, and the others regarding Yu Ye's situation, and agreeing to search for treasures like the blood cord stone marrow, Yin Zhaoge left. After meeting Taoist Cloud Conquest and the other prime clear bigwigs in the roving Jade Heavens, he exited the roving Jade Heavens and returned to the sky beyond skies. After the sky beyond skies and the other worlds entered the Zhu Luo Royal Reed Heaven, the awakened sky cosmos shrunk. The Pill Hall separated itself from the broad Creed Mountain's peak, and the hall's internal cosmos returned to the main hall. Out of consideration, Yin Zhaoge didn't place the Pill Hall within the Zhu Luo Royal Reed Heaven. Instead, he allowed it to continue drifting within the void's boundless outskirts. After going all out for the immortal extermination formation, we finally obtained our current stable environment, allowing us to recuperate. Su Fei looked towards Yin Zhaoge. At the same time, we also need to slow down and observe the changes of the situation outside. For Orthodox Taoism, self-development was very important. Seizing the immortal extermination formation wasn't to immediately take revenge by attacking the immortal court or the blessed lands of the White Lotus. It wasn't to cause mutual destruction, resulting in mutual destruction. Even the Cloud Sky Fairy, who was currently in control of the immortal extermination formation, could still maintain her rationality after losing her elder brother and 2 younger sisters due to the great calamity. It wasn't that the time wasn't right, but that the time wasn't right. Continuously developing and accumulating until one could suppress their opponents with brute strength and sweep through the entire universe. Senior apprentice brother Su also needs to recuperate. Why don't you hand over the sex matters to junior apprentice brother Xia, junior apprentice brother Lan, little Jun, and the others, said Yin Zhaoge. During the battle for the immortal extermination formation, Su Fei, who possessed the golden body of the great sage, had expended a lot of his energy. After the battle, he was in a weakened state, and it wasn't easy for him to recover his vitality. I'll make the arrangements. Su Fei nodded and looked towards Yin Zhaoge. What about you, junior apprentice brother Yin? Although I really want to cause trouble for the Dipankara ancient Buddha, Tao Lord Luya, and the others, the time isn't ripe yet. Yin Zhaoge said, the battle of the immortal extermination formation gave me quite a lot of inspiration. I need some time to organize some martial arts principles. That's why I plan on entering seclusion for some time. Su Fei's interest was piqued. Now that you've achieved the 5 Qis unification, your next cultivation should be towards condensing the 3 flowers above your head. Essence, Qi, and Spirit. Which one would you condense first? Chapter 1628. The 5 Qis unification was a grand virtual immortal. On top of that, he could cultivate the 3 flowers at one's prominence and become a great overarching heavenly immortal. The so-called 3 flowers, also known as the 3 splendors, were the highly condensed martial arts concepts that a martial artist had learned in the process of cultivation, and even further breakthroughs in sublimations. Essence, Qi, and Spirit were all gathered together, and that was when all space-time in the Golden Luo realm was at ease. The sequence of cultivating the 3 flowers was not fixed. It depended on the martial artist's own judgment and choice. However, the 3 beauties had their own differences. Choosing one of them involved a certain trade-off. If it's junior apprentice brother Yin, you most likely cultivate the splendor of Qi and the splendor of Spirit first, leaving the splendor of Essence last, right? It's just that I wonder which one you will choose first. Su Fei asked Yin Zhaoge. The cultivation of the 3 beauties was different from one another. Cultivating the essence and strengthening one's foundation was directly reflected in the fact that one's recovery speed would be faster after being injured. When one was extremely fatigued and mentally injured, it was also easier for one to recover one's vitality. Even when they were heavily injured, their vitality was even more tenacious. At the same time, the most important thing was that his lifespan was greatly increased. It was often said that the lifespan of an essence immortal was limited to 1 yuan, which was 129,600 years. However, in reality, many essence immortals could not reach this limit. On the one hand, it was because of the accumulation of injuries, which damaged his foundation and vitality, and reduced his lifespan. On the other hand, it was related to the essence. Strictly speaking, there was a prerequisite for the so-called limit of an essence immortal's lifespan. Only essence immortals who had cultivated to the essence and could condense at the top would have the foundation to pursue a lifespan of 129,600 years. Double flower at one's prominence meant the pinnacle of the virtual immortal realm. At the same time, one of the two flowers was the essence. Only virtual immortals at this level had a chance of reaching the theoretical limit of a virtual immortal's lifespan of 1 yuan. If the twin flowers at one's prominence were the essence of Qi and the essence of God, one would reach the pinnacle of the virtual immortal realm and be a step away from the grand heavenly immortal realm. However, the limit of one's lifespan would be far less than a yuan. Among the three flowers, cultivating the flower of Qi had the most direct effect on a martial artist's actual combat ability. When the essence of Qi converged, the immortal essence of a martial artist's 5 Qi's unifications would be greatly enhanced in both quality and quantity. Under the nourishment of his Qi and blood, his body would also be strengthened. All in all, be it his offense, defense, speed or reaction speed, they would all improve by leaps and bounds. Cultivating the Qi splendor usually meant that a warrior's strength was at the grand virtual immortal realm. With the essence of Qi gathered at the top of the head, a martial artist's combat prowess in a head-on battle would have a significant leap. From another perspective, the stronger a person was, the less likely it was for them to be harmed by others, and the less likely it was for them to die. This was also equivalent to increasing their lifespan and safety. Compared to the essence of Qi, the essence of God was similar to the essence of essence. Cultivating the essence of divinity would allow a martial artist's divine soul to become more agile, which was beneficial to a small increase in one's perception. More importantly, it was more beneficial for a martial artist's daily cultivation, study, and comprehend the supreme martial arts and the principles of the world, and it was more convenient for them to integrate everything they had learned. At the same time, to a certain extent, it was more beneficial for virtual immortals to challenge the origin heavenly tribulation and strive towards a higher level of grand heavenly immortal. Although the help it provided was limited, for existences like the origin heavenly tribulation, even a slight increase in the probability was already a great help to a martial artist. Each of the three flowers had its own wonders. No matter which one was cultivated, it would be a huge improvement for a martial artist. However, within this, there was a very important obstacle. That was, the more one cultivated the three flowers, the harder it was to cultivate. Cultivating one of the flowers wouldn't help in cultivating the other two flowers in the future. Instead, it would become a hindrance and increase the difficulty of cultivation. Even if one cultivated the essence of God, which was the most beneficial for daily cultivation, it would only help in comprehending the Tao. When a martial artist attempted to condense the other two flowers, it wouldn't benefit them at all. Instead, it would increase the difficulty. The closer one got to the Tao realm, the harder it would be. This was one of the most direct experiences. Since ancient times, virtual immortals who were stuck at the duo flowers converged crown realm weren't rare. Yin Zhaoge and the others had interacted with traveling monk Huiyan Muzha, hundred-eyed demon lord, Fuluozi, cover removal bodhisattva, and many other senior experts. It was precisely because of this that grand virtual immortals had to make their own decisions in cultivating the three flowers above the crown. Generally speaking, everyone's cultivation mainly depended on what they had learned. Different martial arts would have different effects on a martial artist's cultivation of the three flowers above the crown. For most people, they had to be down to earth. It wasn't easy to cultivate one flower. Naturally, they would cultivate the one with the most hope. If they managed to cultivate it, it would be greatly beneficial to them. Only, who wouldn't desire to reach a higher level after reaching this stage? He had to spend a lot of time thinking about this. For example, theoretically speaking, the essence of Qi and the essence of God were more obvious than the essence of essence in increasing one's combat prowess, especially during a head-on battle. However, while such a dual flowers converged crown was strong, the limit of one's lifespan was much lower than a yuan. Would the remaining lifespan be enough for him to cultivate the essence of essence, three flowers converged crown, pass the origin heavenly tribulation, and break through to the grand heavenly immortal realm? After all, the three flowers converged crown was equivalent to 3 stages. The last stage was the most difficult. On the other hand, cultivating the essence of God and the essence of essence was theoretically the most beneficial for cultivation. It meant that one would have more time and stronger comprehension. From a certain perspective, it could even be said that the dual flowers combination had the highest chance of breaking through to the grand heavenly immortal realm. However, such a combination was also the weakest combination in terms of combat prowess. Theoretically speaking, one's lifespan was long, but it didn't mean that one could live for that long. Naturally, birth, aging, sickness, and death were all considered as death. As such, the cultivation sequence of the three flowers was an extremely important decision for most virtual immortals. However, this didn't seem to be a problem for Yin Zhaoge. After all, the current him was still too young. Yin Zhaoge's outstanding talents and strong momentum of ascension made everyone believe that unless his foundation was severely damaged by his enemies, Yin Zhaoge would ascend to the grand heavenly immortal realm in the future. Gao Han's title of Young Heavenly Lord was already well-deserved. The only question was when it would happen. Everyone believed that it wouldn't be too late. As such, even if Yin Zhaoge cultivated the essence of Qi and the essence of God first, and placed the essence of essence last, his natural lifespan should be sufficient. As such, Su Fei asked Yin Zhaoge which one he would place first, the essence of Qi and the essence of God. If it's me, I should try to condense the essence of God first, right? It's more beneficial for my current cultivation path. Yin Zhaoge touched his chin and answered, as for the choice between the essence of Qi and the essence of essence, it doesn't really matter if it's only compared to virtual immortals. Su Fei smiled and said, you're right. However, you should still choose the essence of Qi. The enemies that might be targeting you would definitely be in the grand heavenly immortal realm. Chapter 1629. In Xue Fei's opinion, no matter what Yin Zhaoge chose, even if it was the combination of the essence splendor and the God splendor, with the dual flowers converged crown, he would be able to sweep through the grand virtual realm and become the #1 virtual immortal. In fact, if Yin Zhaoge managed to cultivate the Qi splendor first, he who had a single flower converged crown would already be able to dominate the entire Great Void. After all, Yin Zhaoge, who had just ascended to the Grand Void, and had yet to start cultivating the three splendors, had already killed the ear-digging Arhat, a Buddhist Banti equivalent to Taoism's twin flowers, converged prominence virtual immortal heavenly monarch. However, with Yin Zhaoge's current reputation, the opponents that would target him would at least be grand heavenly realm experts. To Yin Zhaoge, it was still very necessary for him to raise his strength a step further after successfully cultivating in the splendor of Qi. First try to condense the splendor of divinity, then observe a bit more. Saying thus, Yin Zhaoge looked at Su Fei. Senior apprentice brother Su, you intend to recultivate in the three splendors. How is your progress? Su Fei said, I've already made some progress, but I still need to work harder. He, Yin Zhaoge's North Ocean clone, and Pan Pan shared the burden of 3 golden bodies of the Great Sage. At the same time that the golden body of the Great Sage gained immense combat power, the golden body of the Great Sage was also subtly influencing their bodies. As the two of them fused together, the boundary between them became thinner and thinner, causing their cultivation levels to become indistinct and unpredictable. However, this was not the bestowment of a great demon of the netherworld. There were some paths that had to be taken and difficulties that had to be overcome. In the end, they still had to rely on themselves. In particular, if one was unwilling to stop at the current level of the golden body of the Great Sage, which was the double flowers at one's prominence virtual immortal realm, then they would have to put in a lot of effort, and it would not be as easy as cultivating on their own. Realistically speaking, It was naturally a great bargain, and a great fortuitous opportunity. However, there was always a limit to this fortuitous opportunity. If he wanted to surpass the limit and advance further, he had to do even more. If I can manifest the golden body of the great sage, I'll have less to worry about, Su Fei said. I'll just focus on condensing the essence and God essence. Yan Zhaoge nodded. I have the same intentions regarding the Northern Ocean clone. After manifesting the golden body of the great sage, be it Xue Fei, the North Ocean clone or Pan Pan, all of them had expended a great deal of energy. Retraining the three essences and gathering the essence at the top would help them recover their vitality as quickly as possible. To a certain extent, it was equivalent to a disguised increase in direct combat strength. Unlike the others, the three of them were special. While Junior has achieved the human exalt realm, he is still far away from the immortal mortal tribulation. Hopefully he won't be too hasty, said Yan Zhaoge. Of course. Su Fei smiled and said, now that he has enough confidence in himself, he is also becoming more and more composed. Yan Zhaoge could not help but laugh as he patted his head. It's my fault, always treating him like a child. Su Fei seemed to have thought of something and said, that's right, junior sister Xikong's foundation is gradually stabilizing. She will attempt to break through the great tribulation of immortality and mortality in the next few years, so she can't be distracted. A while ago, she requested to resign from her position as the first seat of the Technique Importation Hall. Of Broad Creed Mountain's higher echelon experts, other than Yuan Zhengfeng, who had just passed the immortal mortal tribulation, there were also Fang Zhuan, Xikong Qing, Xia Guang, and Ying Longtu who were preparing to attempt their immortal mortal tribulation. Where's the replacement? Yan Zhaoge asked. Under normal circumstances, the predecessor would recommend a successor for such a voluntary resignation. Although the sect might not necessarily allow it, the opinions of the predecessors would definitely be taken into consideration. After all, Broad Creed Mountain currently did not have any obvious internal factions, with no power struggles involved within. Martial Aunt Fu and junior sister Xikong came together, Su Fei said. Yan Zhaoge realized. Senior apprentice Aunt Fu is going to take over junior apprentice sister Xikong's position? It's probably because of Junior, right? Xue Fei sighed. Yan Zhaoge could not help but sigh emotionally. Fu Enshu was Feng Yinxing and Xikong Qing's master. In reality, after Xikong Qing's cultivation had reached a certain level, she had taken over the position of the first seat of the Technique Inheritance Hall from Fu Enshu. When the younger generation grew up and had some achievements, the older generation would pass on their duties with peace of mind. Then, they would cultivate in peace and ignore the mundane affairs, striding towards a higher level of martial arts. It was not just Broad Creed Mountain. This was the norm for most sects in the world. Fu Enshu's cultivation wasn't slow either, as she had already attained the 9th level of the martial saint realm, the late immortal bridge stage, just a step away from the human exalt realm. Compared to the limit of her lifespan, she was still extremely young. However, the pupil surpassed the master. Not mentioning Feng Yinsheng, Xikong Qing had also clearly surpassed Fu Enshu. Especially in terms of momentum, Xikong Qing was clearly stronger than her master. This was even more important than her current surpassing. It meant that barring any major unforeseen circumstances, Fu Enshu would have no chance of surpassing her master in the future. It was the same for Ying Longtu and Xia Guang. It was fine if they were the third generation of Broad Creed Mountain. Moreover, the peak of Broad Creed Mountain's fourth generation disciples, Shi Jun, had similarly already attained the peak of the 10th level of the martial saint realm. The younger generation was not just taking over. Now the new generation was truly replacing the old. Fu Enshu had always been competitive. Still, as Shi Jun surpassed her now, she seemed to finally feel at ease. It was not that she had lost her drive. She still had the motivation and potential to improve, just that she was no longer so stubborn. Her passing down the position of first seat of the martial inheritance hall to Xikong Qing that year was a form of acknowledgement. Now that she had succeeded Xikong Qing and assumed this position once more, it was another form of affirmation. Since her disciple was more suited to ascend to the higher realms than her, It would not be strange for her to replace her, allowing her disciple to cultivate without distractions. While senior apprentice Aunt Fu is competitive, and sometimes even a little unreasonable, her feelings for our broad Creed Mountain are still indisputable. Yin Zhaoge smiled. Moreover, it is also just a temporary replacement for a period of time, right? If junior apprentice sister Sikong succeeds in her breakthrough and doesn't replace her, more youngsters would still be able to grow up. Senior apprentice Aunt Fu would still be able to focus on her cultivation. Ever since the sky beyond heavens had been established, 100 years had passed. Not only had Sikong Qing, Xia Guang, Ying Longtu, and Shijun grown up, younger descendants of Broad Creed Mountain had also appeared. Fu Enshu was just a temporary replacement. There would definitely be younger juniors who would grow up and take over. This included Shijun, who would likely temporarily replace Xia Guang as the first seat of the disciplinary hall, allowing Xia Guang to focus on his cultivation. Still, Shijun would most likely step down and prepare for the immortal mortal tribulation like Sikong Qing and Xia Guang. At that time, suitable successors would also appear. Passing down the torch was just like that. My seclusion this time might be long or short. I'll have to trouble senior apprentice brother Su, and the rest with regards to external matters. Yin Zhaoge said. Still, I don't have to go into seclusion. If there's anything urgent, feel free to tell me. Su Fei smiled. I look forward to your results when you come out of seclusion. He clenched his right hand into a fist and extended it forward. Yin Zhaoge smiled and did the same. He clenched his fist and bumped it with Su Fei's fist before bidding farewell and leaving. Chapter 1630. When an immortal realm martial artist went into seclusion, the time they spent in seclusion could be long or short. The shortest time was a few years, but the longest time could be 100 years, 1,000 years, or even longer. For them, a single session of seclusion could be the time from birth to death for many people. The closer one got to the Tao realm, the more difficult it would be. The higher one's cultivation level was, the harder it would be to continue advancing. The more effort one would have to put in, the more resources one would have to consume, and the more time one would have to spend. Essence immortals, mystic immortals, and even perfected immortals could be stuck at the same realm for thousands of years. Many Taoist heavenly monarchs, Buddhist Bantis, demon race small saints, and 9 underworlds demon monarchs had already ascended to the Great Void realm, achieving the 5 Qis unifications. But even now, he was still standing there, looking up at the zenith heaven. After obtaining the immortal extermination formation, the orthodox Taoism finally had a chance to develop stably. From then on, time flew by unknowingly. 100 years passed in the blink of an eye. In 100 years, the Taoism's prime clear bigwigs, the incongruence Divine Mother and the Cloud Sky Fairy, opened up 2 more universes. They stood side by side with the other Taoism heavens, and turned into a beautiful fairyland. After several generations of people in the mortal world, the 2 universes, and the many worlds within them also began to take shape. The entire Taoist sect was flourishing. Apart from the Taoism, the Western Pure Lands, and the Astro Mountain's starry sea of demons were no longer as intense as before. Although they were not as secluded as before, the Orthodox Buddhist sects and the demon race were much more stable and focused on their own development. The Immortal Court and the blessed lands of the White Lotus, on the other hand, were unavoidable. They continued to clash with one another. This kind of thing was helpful to both sides in stabilizing their faith, so the confrontation was under the conscious control of both sides. Due to the rise of the Orthodox Taoism, both sides became more restrained. However, after 100 years, the conflict between the 2 sides finally began to intensify, and there were signs of another large-scale war breaking out. The Western Pure Lands and the Astro Mountain starry seas were relatively quiet. The Taoism's 3 clear lineage also seemed to be unconcerned about the matter. However, the movement and probing of the Orthodox Taoism had never stopped. Instead, it was becoming more and more frequent. It was different from how the Orthodox Taoist sects had to take advantage of the war to have more space to move around. Currently, the 2 heretics had to be wary of the Orthodox Taoism's attitude in order to determine if they were determined to engage in an all-out war, preventing the three clear lineage from taking advantage of the situation. So, in the end, the immeasurable heavenly Lord and the future Buddha, two Tao realm mighty figures, are biding their time and leaving the battlefield to those below the Tao realm? In the sky beyond skies, on the broad Creed Mountain, the guest Meng Wan said while resting her chin on her hand. Feng Yinsheng, who was in front of her, nodded. That's right. Although they haven't gone all out, the battle between the two sides is still fierce and cruel. The all-out war between the heretics occurs once every 100 years. Now it's time again, but I don't know how long it will last this time. It shouldn't be as continuous as last time for 100 years, Meng Wan said. The conversation between the two of them was through voice transmission. This was because Guan Yulua of the 9th level of the martial saint realm, who had yet to attain the human exalt stage, was still seated before him. Although Guan Yulua didn't know what they were talking about, she could roughly guess what they were talking about based on their expressions. At her current level, although there were still many taboos regarding matters of the heretics, she had a rough understanding of some things. She understood that Feng Yinsheng and Meng Wan were being considerate towards her. Sister Yinsheng, is there any confirmed news regarding the Yellow Earth Apricot flag? Guan Yulua didn't ask much about the heretics, and asked about something else. There is news, but it might not be conclusive, Feng Yinsheng answered. Southern Extremity Taoist and the others are only giving it a try. Meng Wan and Guan Yulua's expressions didn't change when they heard Feng Yinsheng addressing the Southern Extremity Longevity Emperor as such. They had long gotten used to it. When Feng Yinsheng had just returned from the 9 underworlds, she was already in the virtual immortal realm. Many people couldn't get used to it for a while. After getting used to it, she then transcended the origin heavenly tribulation and ascended to the grand heavenly realm. That was even more shocking. Although Feng Yinsheng had always concealed her aura, due to personal reasons, and manifested her form, no one had forgotten one thing. Up until today, other than the great sage equaling heavens, she was still the #1 expert in the Zhu Luo Royal Reed Heaven. She was the Taoism's grand heavenly immortal, who presided over this cosmos. At her cultivation realm, besides the direct descendants and close relatives, everyone in the Tao sect who hadn't reached the golden immortal realm had to address her respectfully as the heavenly exalt Luo Yuan, or the doomsday heavenly exalt according to etiquette when they met her. Her full title was the Supreme Heavenly Exalt Luo Yuan, the Dark Sun Devouring Grand Sun World Chaos Doomsday Heavenly Exalt. Only Feng Yinsheng didn't mind it. That was why she wasn't so strict with those who were close to her. Outsiders such as Gao Han and Ling Qing would have to address her with the title to show their respect when they saw her. Feng Yinsheng addressed the Southern Extremity Longevity Emperor as a Taoist because she was humble and respected him for achieving the Tao earlier. In terms of strength, it would be a different story. The Yellow Earth Apricot flag holds a special meaning. It would naturally be best if we could find it. However, there's no need to be too conflicted before we have any concrete clues. Meng Wan consoled Guan Yulua. Guan Yulua nodded. You're right. However, I can't help but think about it. After all, just like what Sister Yinsheng said, Mahamayuri is truly powerful. Among the grand heavenly realm experts, Taoism's people were still afraid of Mahamayuri. After the battle for the immortal extermination formation, it would take a long time for the great sage equaling heavens to manifest. Although Taoism still had experts like Yang Jian, they weren't confident in facing Mahamayuri. Since the great Taoist master Xian Du failed to retrieve the floating flame flag from the Elder Lord, Taoism's people would find it troublesome to face Mahamayuri most of the time. Naturally, everyone recalled the jade illusory defensive treasure, the Yellow Earth Apricot flag, which was known as the floating flame flag, and the green lotus flag. With this treasure in hand, it would be much easier for them to face Mahamayuri. However, the demon race and the blessed lands of the White Lotus were coveting this treasure as well. Only, no one had any concrete clues to find the Yellow Earth Apricot flag's whereabouts. Sister Yinsheng, can't you deal with Mahamayuri even if you suddenly ambush him? Guan Yulua asked, slightly unwilling to give up. If I were to ambush him, There's an 80% chance that his five-colored divine light would be able to react in time. Feng Yunxing answered honestly. Although my saber light is capable of destroying all techniques, Mahamayuri's foundations are much sturdier than mine. The five-colored divine light can be reborn whenever it dissipates. If we were to continue in a stalemate, his chances of winning would be much higher. Meng Wan smiled and said, Senior apprentice sister, it'll be fine if you accumulate more. After all, Mahamayuri was born during the primordial era, much earlier than you. However, he should have already reached the highest level of attainment. It's extremely difficult for him to take another step forward, while you're still improving by leaps and bounds. Guan Yulua was slightly worried. Sister Yunsheng, will it be fine if you change your martial path saber intent halfway through? Chapter 1631. When her cultivation realm was still low, Feng Yunxing was already known for her combat prowess. If she did not make a trip to the 9 underworlds, her cultivation speed would only be above average. Many of her innate talents were only revealed when she fought with others in actual combat. After returning from the 9 underworlds, due to special reasons, her strength had been improving at an extremely fast pace. She had to suppress it from time to time to prevent herself from being too hasty. When she fought with others, she was even sharper. Even when she reached the Grand Heavenly Realm and Grand Heavenly Realm, not many could match her. With this foundation, Feng Yunxing did not stop. Instead, she advanced even further. Although her methods were controversial, she was indeed one of the most threatening Grand Heavenly Immortals of the Orthodox Taoism. It was fine if she did not make a move. Once she made a move, a bigwig expert would usually perish. Some people did not mind doing sneak attacks and assassinations. Some were even willing to do it. However, the absolute arts and individual strength that they cultivated might not be suitable for it. Some people had the ability to do it, but they might not be willing to do it. Feng Yunxing was not only skilled in this aspect, but also did not mind using it. This caused her already sharp lethality to be amplified many times. Currently, in the eyes of the Western Pure Lands, the demon race, and the other experts, Feng Yunxing was more dangerous than the incongruence Divine Mother, the Cloud Sky Fairy, the Southern Extremity Longevity Emperor, and the other Grand Heavenly Immortals. However, whenever Guan Yulua thought about this, she would always feel a sense of loss. In the past, Feng Yunxing's martial Dao saber intent had always been open and aboveboard, grand and domineering. Her temperament was also very different from the exalted Rahu luminary, Jian Shunhua. The current changes made Guan Yulua worried that it would affect Feng Yunxing's future. She was also worried that such saber arts would affect Feng Yunxing's will. Yulua, don't worry about me. Feng Yunxing patted her hand and said with a smile, although my current bladesmanship has changed from when I was in the past, it is just like the opposite of light and darkness, and the coexistence of yin and yang. Today's change will not dampen my martial arts faith. On the contrary, it may be an improvement. This is the path that I have planned. Don't worry. Guan Yulua nodded thoughtfully. Unlike Guan Yulua, Meng Wan had already pushed open the immortal door. She looked at Feng Yunxing without saying a word, shaking her head slightly in her heart. Senior sister, you're right. You can walk this path, but it might not be your only choice, right? Even if you can walk it, there will be many dangers, and it won't be smooth. Perhaps other paths will be smoother for you. Meng Wan thought to herself, behind the splendor of this era, there is an inseparable darkness. Although she was thinking a lot, she didn't show it on her face. She smiled and changed the topic, no longer talking about this matter. As they chatted, Feng Yunxing's expression suddenly changed. Zhaoge has come out. While it was not as shocking as when Yin Zhaoge's 5-cheese unification had ascended to Grand Void that year, Meng Wan and Guan Yulua had not sensed it at all. Still, they naturally believed in Feng Yunxing's judgment. Both of them smiled as they stood up to bid farewell to Feng Yunxing. There was no need for pleasantries between Feng Yunxing and them. After agreeing to chat again next time, she sent them off before heading to the back mountains of Broad Creed Mountain. When she arrived in front of the cave where Yin Zhaoge was in seclusion, the cave manor's door automatically opened. The cave manor's furnishings were simple, with only a few prayer mats. After Feng Yunxing entered, she saw Yin Zhaoge sitting in the meditative position on a prayer mat. Radiance flickered above his head, forming a bright radiance of divinity. 5 Qis unification, 3 flowers converged crown. Yin Zhaoge had successfully taken the first step. As the radiance circulated above his head, it seemed to contain boundless profundities, connecting the heavens and the earth. However, it didn't cause any ripples or attract anyone's attention, as if it was illusory. The ethereal radiance bloomed, resembling formless flower petals scattered all over the ground, continuously drifting towards the outside world. Leaving the cave manor, leaving the broad Creed mountain, leaving the sky beyond skies, even leaving the Zhuluo royal reed heaven, it extended all the way into the boundless void. The elephant is formless, the loudest sound is silent. Seeing this, Feng Yunxing praised, Zhaoge, you've deeply grasped the profundities of the great Tao. Yin Zhaoge smiled, retracted the radiance above his head, and returned to his Naiwan palace. He stood up, held Feng Yunxing's hand, and walked out of the cave manor together. I've tried many new ideas, which is why I spent some time. However, the results are pretty good. As Yin Zhaoge spoke, he asked, do you have any information on the whereabouts of the soul-shattering jade? Out of the 3 treasures required to treat Yu Yi, the blood cord stone pith, the soul-shattering jade, and the spirit ocean essence, Yin Zhaoge wasn't in seclusion. Every once in a while, the broad Creed mountain would gather important information and send it to his cave manor. As such, although Yin Zhaoge had been focusing on cultivation for the past few years, he had never lost contact with the outside world. Out of the 3 treasures, only the soul-shattering jade remained unheard of. As such, the first thing Yin Zhaoge asked after coming out of seclusion was this. Currently, there's no news about it. Senior Gao intends to wait for a few more days. If there's still no news about it, then we might as well stop waiting, answered Feng Yunxing. Yin Zhaoge nodded silently. After a while, he asked again, how's the news about the Wuji apricot yellow flag? Previously, the information regarding the Wuji apricot yellow flag was already mentioned. As such, Yin Zhaoge was aware of it. We still don't have any concrete clues. Feng Yunxing shook her head. Taoist Yang and Taoist Southern Extremity Longevity are both doing their best to search for it. Yang Jian and the Southern Extremity Longevity Emperor were of the Jade Clear lineage. Naturally, they were the most concerned about the Wuji apricot yellow flag. Unfortunately, most of the clues they could find were like trying to fish for the moon in the water. Their value was limited. The two chatted about all sorts of things. They weren't limited to the matters of the outside world, nor were they limited to discussing the Tao. Instead, Feng Yunxing talked about the various trivial matters that Yin Zhaoge had seen during his seclusion. In the end, Yin Zhaoge smiled and said, our remaining sea-calming pearl can be put to use now. Oh, you have a plan in mind? Feng Yunxing raised her brows. Yin Zhaoge said, I have a preliminary plan. We'll act according to the situation. Then, the two exited the sky beyond skies and the vermilion royal reed heaven. Yin Zhaoge repeated the same trick. Just like how he established the vermilion royal reed heaven, he used the sea-calming pearl to establish another universe, which was on par with the vermilion royal reed heaven and the other Taoism heavens within the boundless void. Such a commotion couldn't be hidden from others. The Taoism experts in the nearby Taoism heavens were the first to notice it. In the faraway void, the other forces who were scouting for information were also attracted by it. Yin Zhaoge didn't plan on hiding it. He continued doing his own thing. No one else came to disturb him. Everyone silently watched another universe being established. Should we ask junior apprentice Brother Lan to arrange for some people to migrate over? Asked Feng Yunxing. Just migrate the mortals over to a different world to live. Yin Zhaoge answered. The various martial sects shouldn't interfere. I have my own arrangements for this universe. If Yin Zhaoge didn't exit seclusion this time, Feng Yunxing might have to make a trip there. Now that Yin Zhaoge had exited seclusion, he intended to go out and exercise his muscles, while Feng Yunxing remained in the vermilion royal reed heaven. Be careful of being targeted by others, reminded Feng Yunxing. Yin Zhaoge smiled. Things are different now. I'm very safe as long as I can't track your movements. Others would be even more afraid of being targeted by you. Feng Yinxing was used to keeping her aura concealed. While she resided in the Vermilion Royal Reed Heaven, her movements were always unpredictable to the outside world. You should still be careful, Feng Yinxing said. The other party might first probe the Vermilion Royal Reed Heaven. If I don't show myself, the other party will take advantage of me. If I show myself, I'll be held back by the other party's Grand Heavenly Immortal, and won't be able to assist you. Yin Zhaoge said, Don't worry. The North Ocean clone and Panpan will follow me there. I'll pay attention to your side. If there's an emergency, I'll head over. Feng Yinxing said decisively. If anything happens in the Vermilion Royal Reed Heaven, Daoist Sua and Daoist Cloudy Sky can take care of it. Yin Zhaoge laughed. You're hurting my pride by saying that. You're thick-skinned. You're not afraid, said Feng Yinxing as a matter of fact. You're making me feel even sadder. Yin Zhaoge smiled and said with a serious expression, Don't worry, it'll be fine. I don't have any ominous premonitions. Instead, it might be an auspicious premonition. An auspicious premonition? Feng Yinxing pondered. After Yin Zhaoge bade farewell to her and Lan Wenyan, he brought the North Ocean clone and Panpan out of the sky beyond skies. They left the Vermilion Royal Reed Heaven and entered the void's boundless outskirts. Xuefei was in seclusion. While the three golden bodies of the great sage could be manifested separately, it would still take some time before they could combine to manifest the great sage equaling heaven's true body. After all, the battle to seize the immortal extermination formation had consumed a lot of energy. As such, Yin Zhaoge didn't disturb Xuefei this time and continued on his way. He first paid a visit to Crimson Bright in Yangtian, before entering the roving Jade Heavens to pay a visit to Gao Xuebua. Afterwards, he obtained directions from Gao Xuebua, before entering the boundless void's outskirts to meet with the prime clear successor, who had met Yinglongtu. While walking, Yin Zhaoge's origin heavenly scripture was also circulating. The closer he got to the region, where Yinglongtu had lost contact with him, the more things he could see, and the more clues he could find. Yin Zhaoge gradually understood what was going on. However, he wasn't in a rush. Instead, he went to meet up with Long Xingquan, who had arrived earlier than him. Chapter 1634. After hearing Taoist Miao Chen's words, Yin Zhaoge and Long Xingquan both nodded. The other party was also deducing the karmic clues. With such an intense disturbance, the possibility of him being a Buddhist Banti of orthodox cultivation was much higher. Fellow Taoist Miao Chen, since you're traveling with my junior apprentice brother, please explain everything that happened along the way, said Yin Zhaoge. All right. Taoist Miao Chen immediately explained everything in detail. He knew that Yin Zhaoge possessed the Jade Clear Origin heavenly scripture, and wanted to deduce Yinglongtu's whereabouts with more clues. As such, he tried his best to explain everything in detail. Yin Zhaoge didn't show any signs of impatience. He quietly listened to Taoist Miao Chen's narration, and occasionally asked a question. Jade green rays of light continuously sketched within Yin Zhaoge's pupils. After Taoist Miao Chen finished his narration, Yin Zhaoge closed his eyes and reopened them after a long while. Although we still don't have any clear clues, we already know a lot of things. Follow me. Then Yin Zhaoge took the lead, with Long Xingquan and Taoist Miao Chen following behind him. The group continued traversing through the void in the direction that Yinglongtu had gone before disappearing. Jade radiances continuously flickered within Yin Zhaoge's pupils. A shapeless path that Long Xingquan and Taoist Miao Chen couldn't see seemed to have appeared within the void. However, Yin Zhaoge didn't hesitate and continued walking. After walking for an unknown amount of time, Yin Zhaoge's pace gradually slowed down. Long Xingquan and Taoist Miao Chen looked towards Yin Zhaoge. Yin Zhaoge's expression became a little excited. He should be nearby. He looked at the surrounding dark void. It seems like you're right. Little friend Ying entered a place similar to the original nebula, or the Starry River tributary. Long Xingquan immediately understood. Due to the uniqueness of that place, Yin Zhaoge's deductions became increasingly difficult. However, on the other hand, it meant that they were already very close to that place. The closer they were, the more obvious the effects of that miraculous place on the surrounding environment, and the greater the obstruction Yin Zhaoge faced. That miraculous place is fading away. Yin Zhaoge suddenly frowned. It's similar to the awakened sky cosmos. Currently, it was distancing itself from them, which was why the miraculous place was gradually weakening. The other party's position was erratic and unpredictable. If Yin Zhaoge wanted to search for him, the difficulty instantly became immense. The strength of the miraculous force that obstructed his deduction only revealed the distance between the two sides. Still, there was no distinction of up, down, left, or right amidst the boundless space of extradimensional space. Yin Zhaoge was unable to determine his direction based on this. I also want to know who is in the Great Wilderness Yuan Palace. Oh, from your words, you seem to know who it is inside. As Yin Zhaoge said this, he watched as Mu Jia took out a black alms bowl. Muza knocked on the alms bowl, and clear water emerged from it. The reflection of the water guided the way. We wanted to chase into the Great Wilderness natal residence, but we were stopped by the people inside, and had to retreat in the end. Muza said, that feeling was a little familiar. Yin Zhaoge's expression turned a little strange. Muza was of the Jade Clear direct lineage during the ancient era. After that, he entered Buddhism together with his master, the Samantabhadra cultivated deity. He listened to the teachings of the Samantabhadra Bodhisattva and the Guanyin Bodhisattva. His deduction that the other party was of Taoism's direct lineage was most likely correct. However, if he didn't come into contact with the other party and still felt a sense of familiarity, the other party would be rather limited. I say, could it be the three altar sea meeting divinity inside? Asked Yin Zhaoge with a strange expression. The so-called three altar sea meeting divinity was also commonly known as the third Prince Neza. He was also a famous figure in Taoism's history. He was one of the peak figures of the Jade Clear direct lineage besides Yang Jian. During the ancient era, he was already famous when he was still a grand virtual immortal. After that, he entered the Heavenly Court's divine palace and ascended to the grand heavenly realm during the Middle Era. He was also a famous guardian god of the Heavenly Court's divine palace, surpassing countless seniors. In terms of individual strength, he was considered one of the top experts in the entire Heavenly Court's divine palace. Of course, comparatively speaking, his temper was also very famous. He was a famous arrogant figure in Taoism's history. Currently, Yin Zhaoge's information regarding this Taoism's direct lineage heavenly immortals' whereabouts were still unclear. However, most of the rumors said that he had already perished during the Great Calamity. However, there was no concrete evidence. As such, after hearing Muza's words, Yin Zhaoge couldn't help but have some guesses. Unexpectedly, Muza gave another answer. I'm not sure. However, compared to third brother, I think he's more like his master, senior apprentice Uncle Tai. Tai cultivated deity? Yin Zhaoge raised his brows slightly. He was also a Taoism bigwig expert who was personally taught by the Jade Clear founder, the Lord of Primordial Beginning. In the past, he was known as the Jade Illusory 12 Immortals along with the Lord of Broad Accomplishment, Master Red Essence, Samantabhadra Cultivated Deity, Lord of Taoism, and others. He was Neza's master. After the Great Calamity, he was also one of the people whose whereabouts were unknown. There were even fewer rumors about him than Neza. After obtaining Muza's Black Alms Bowl, it would be much easier for Yin Zhaoge to locate the drifting Great Wilderness Origin Palace. Although Muza and the others were chased out of the Great Wilderness Origin Palace, they still managed to enter it. The owner of the Great Wilderness Origin Palace seemed to be distracted by other matters. As a result, Muza and the others used a secret art to secretly locate the Great Wilderness Origin Palace. Initially, they wanted to wait for reinforcements from the Western Pure Lands. In the end, Yin Zhaoge took advantage of them. Yin Zhaoge carefully observed the surroundings and realized that there weren't any grand heavenly realm Buddhas around. He was secretly relieved. Logically speaking, once the grand heavenly realm experts received the news, they would quickly meet up with Muza and the others. Previously, they didn't arrive. From the looks of it, the Western Pure Lands seemed to be busy with other matters. They weren't able to coordinate with the appropriate manpower, which resulted in them being delayed. Yin Zhaoge arrived first and isolated Muza and the others from the outside world. The Western Pure Lands wouldn't be able to locate them in such a short time. However, while Yin Zhaoge was glad, he was also secretly on guard. What are the Western Pure Lands gathering their manpower for? While pondering, Yin Zhaoge traversed through the void's boundless outskirts. This time he found his target in no time. It was a foggy existence that resembled a sea of clouds. It hovered within the pitch-black void. A desolate, primitive, and desolate aura faintly emanated from within. It was the great wilderness origin palace that Yin Zhaoge was looking for. In essence, it was a fragment that separated from the Great Thousand Worlds during the ancient desolation era. That was why it was named the Great Wilderness. Due to the profundities contained within, many bigwigs collected such fragments and created them as their own heavenly abode. After the ancient era, such fragments became extremely rare. Now they only existed in legends. Yin Zhaoge didn't expect to witness it with his own eyes. However, such a unique existence could indeed become a place for someone to live in seclusion. Chapter 1638. From the looks of it, Mu Jia and the other Buddhist supremacies had barged in previously. Although Perfected Tai had chased them out, it still had a negative impact. Perfected Tai should have been controlling the 9 dragons' divine fire shield previously. With Muza and the others' interference, the situation immediately became disadvantageous. The person trapped in the 9 dragons' heavenly fire shield kept thrashing, as if he could break out at any time. Enlightened Master Tai was a veteran grand heavenly immortal of the Jade Clear lineage. His strength was naturally extraordinary. However, even with the help of his treasure, the 9 dragons' heavenly fire shield, he could no longer suppress his opponent. Yin Zhaoge looked at the true deity Tai and then at Mu Jia. Noticing their expressions, he couldn't help but mutter to himself. However, the situation in front of him didn't allow him to think too much. An angry roar came from below the 9 dragons' heavenly fire shield. Then, the milky white raging fire inside began to be suppressed by the majestic power and began to disperse. The flames receded, and the silhouette within it gradually became clear. He wore the heaven and earth ring on his head, held the fire-tipped spear in his hand, stepped on the wind-fire wheels, and wrapped his arms with the heavenly silk ribbon. How could Yin Zhaoge and Mu Jia not recognize each other? He was none other than Neza, one of the few powerhouses who had risen to prominence in the Dao sect. He was known as the great god of the 3 altars, the grand preceptor of the heavens, and the marshal of the middle altar. What the? Yin Zhaoge smacked his lips. It's really you? While Yin Zhaoge had somewhat expected this earlier, truly seeing the other party, Yin Zhaoge still sighed endlessly within his heart. However, Neza seemed a little unusual at the moment. He had the appearance of a young man, but his eyes were ferocious and his brows were filled with hostility. He exerted all his divine powers, and the 9 dragons' heavenly fire shield was about to collapse. The raging flames that sealed the bottom of the cover were constantly dissipating. The 9 fire dragons desperately tried to replenish the flames, but to no avail. Instead, their eyes were dripping with blood, and the scales on their bodies were actually leaking blood. It was clear that they couldn't bear the burden. Seeing this, Yin Zhaoge couldn't help but feel surprised. Looking at the Tai deity who was suppressing the 9 dragons' divine fire shroud again, he couldn't figure out what was going on. Although Neza was Perfected Tai's disciple, he was the same as Yang Jian. They were both outstanding talents of the Dao sect. After he ascended to the grand heavenly realm and attained the body of a heavenly immortal, his cultivation base gradually surpassed Perfected Tai. Perfected Tai was one of the people who understood Neza the best. He looked down at the 9 dragons' heavenly fire shield thoughtfully and said, "The gods of the 3 altars of the sea meeting have long reached the realm of zenith heaven, so it is not difficult for them to control their own minds. However, the lotus fairy body is neither righteous nor evil. After being contaminated by evil thoughts, it turned into an evil body and affected the gods of the 3 altars of the sea meeting. Because of the lotus immortal body, Neza gained a lot of benefits. But now it was precisely because of this reason that he had to suffer such a calamity. Perfected Tai sighed. It's also because I had a narrow escape from death that I had to reforge my soul again and return to Yang from the realm of death. At that moment, my thoughts were the purest. Once I made a mistake, it would be difficult to return. Neza was reborn and did not fall into the devil's path. His pure and blazing murderous intent did not turn into devil's will and did not dissipate. Just like that, he became an existence like a god of slaughter. Rather than saying that he was still a Taoism grand heavenly realm, it was more appropriate to say that he had transformed into a bloodthirsty and violent lotus great demon because of the lotus immortal body. Moreover, he was even more ferocious and violent than the golden-winged roc, the nine-headed bug, and the other demons. He was not as evil as the violent demons in the 9 underworlds, but his killing intent was purer. It was like the Sword King Buddha's 6 paths of reincarnation had transformed into the Hell Tao, and his strength was much stronger than the Sword King Buddha's. During the process of treating him, Perfected Tai vaguely felt that something was amiss. He could not bear to see his disciple lose his life. He was careful and tried his best to solve the problem of Neza. However, he did not succeed in the end. Neza woke up. After being confused at first, he regained his senses like a god of slaughter. Perfected Tai, who was in front of him, was the first person to suffer. Perfected Tai had no choice but to use a backup method to seal Neza there. He was Neza's master. Previously, he had treated Neza, who was seriously injured and on the verge of death. Under the condition that he was prepared, he used the layers of arrangements to form a huge seal. He did not give Neza a chance to unleash his strength and suppressed Neza in the 9 dragons' divine fire barrier. However, the great god of the 3 altars was ferocious after all. He surpassed his master and was stronger than his master Perfected Tai. It was difficult for Perfected Tai to suppress him. Previously, he helped Ding Long to get rid of Mu Jia and the others. After being distracted, he could not continue suppressing Neza. Thanks to Yen Zhaoga's arrival, the seal was temporarily stabilized. However, even so, isn't it a little too exaggerated to be tainted by a grand heavenly immortal's malevolent intent? Chapter 1640. The great calamity had originated from the internal strife of the heavenly court's divine palace. It was very likely that it had revolved around the birth of the immeasurable heavenly lord. After that, the chaos affected the entire heavenly court's divine palace, and even the universe. Some of them decided to act together, and some of them took advantage of the situation because of personal grudges. In short, more and more people joined in, and in the end, it became a huge catastrophe that swept through the entire creation. On the other hand, the heavenly court's divine palace and the 3 clear lineage, as well as the various Taoist sects and branches that were spread throughout the world, had undoubtedly suffered the greatest losses. Countless powerhouses perished, and the flourishing era of martial arts also declined. Among them, the future Buddha was not the only one who made the first move. The figures of the other Tao realm experts were also faintly discernible. The Western Pure Lands, the Demon Race, and even the 9 underworlds had no lack of participants. However, as far as Yen Zhaoga knew, the compassionate cultivated deity and the Samantabhadra cultivated deity, who had betrayed Taoism in the past, namely the Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara and the Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, had not acted against the direct lineage of Taoism. The same went for traveling monk Huiyan Mu Jia, who was currently captured by Yen Zhaoga. As such, when Yen Zhaoga, Gao Han, and the other descendants of Taoism faced them, they still retained the last bit of their relationship. Even if they were to fight, they would still leave some leeway, and not completely fall out with them. Fairy Yin Zhao's elder brother, Zhao Gongming, and her sisters, Qiong Xiao and Fairy Bai Xiao, had all died because of the great calamity. Yang Jian's master, Perfected Yu Ding, had also perished. The incongruent's divine mother had lost her personal disciple before. To them, the impact of what happened in the past was probably even more painful than others. However, over the years they might have felt resentment, but they didn't lose their rationality, become deranged, or undergo a great change in temperament. Compared to them, Neza's state of mind might not be as peaceful, but it was still surprising that his resentment and evil thoughts were so strong. Yin Zhaoge could not help but suspect that there was some special reason behind this. He looked at the Tai spiritual master, then at Mu Jia, and asked straightforwardly. Heavenly King Li was one of the top figures in the Heavenly Court's divine palace back then. He didn't suffer any calamity during the Great Calamity and joined the Western Pure Lands. But apart from that, did he do anything else? It was not that Yin Zhaoge was always speculating about other people's ill intentions. Instead, it was because the father of the pagoda-bearing Heavenly King, Li Jing, had a criminal record. Like Sun Wukong and Yang Jian, Yin Zhaoge had also heard of the legend of Neza wreaking havoc in the seas quite a bit. Some of the versions are different. In some stories, Neza wreaked havoc in the sea because he was a naughty child. In some stories, he saw injustice on the road and helped to save people. Let's not talk about that first. After Neza injured the Dragon King, the Fong family's elder Dragon King came looking for trouble. In some versions of the story, in order not to implicate his family and the local people in the secular world, Neza sacrificed himself and severed ties with his family. He cut off his flesh to return to his mother and bones to return to his father. At the same time, he said that he would take responsibility for what he had done, and at the same time, he gave the dragon race an explanation. In some versions of the story, his father, Li Jing, wanted to kill him in order to avoid trouble. Therefore, Neza cut his flesh and bones to show that the two of them had severed their blood ties. Whether it should be said to be fortunate or unfortunate, as Yin Zhaoge knew, in this world, the relationship between the Li father and son was the latter. This was the first time Neza had been killed. Later on, he used the treasure lotus immortal body to resurrect, and obtained a great opportunity. However, during the revival process, he was obstructed by Li Jing many times. After Neza resurrected, he wanted to take revenge on Li Jing, causing Li Jing to flee everywhere. Even his eldest son Jinjia and his son Muza couldn't stop him. Later on, Li Jing became a disciple of the Dipankara ancient Buddha, who was still a Dipankara Taoist. He obtained the Ru-Yi Golden Pagoda that specifically countered the treasure lotus immortal body, which allowed him to fight against Neza. Under many people's mediation, the two sides reluctantly stopped fighting and made peace. After the ancient investitures of the gods era ended, the two even entered the Heavenly Court's divine palace together. However, from what Yin Zhaoge knew, the relationship between the two had always been bumpy. Even if they worked together, it was only because of their errands. With this in mind, Yin Zhaoge wasn't afraid of using the worst of intentions to analyze the situation of the Heavenly Court's divine palace collapsing and Taoism collapsing during the Great Calamity. That Heavenly King Li probably didn't just leave and join the Western Pure Lands. According to his previous conversation with Yang Jian and the others, Yin Zhaoge already knew that the Western Pure Lands played a significant role during the Great Calamity. This made Yin Zhaoge's imagination run wild about Li Jing and Neza's matters. Moreover, from Yin Zhaoge's current knowledge, Neza's fortuitous encounter with the Lotus Incarnation, and Li Jing becoming a disciple of the Dipankara ancient Buddha, and obtaining the Ru-Yi Golden Pagoda, weren't as simple as they seemed. After all, there were rumors that Neza's roots were actually in the Nviwa Palace. The Li family he was born into was already special. When he was just born, he was almost killed by Li Jing. Yin Zhaoge couldn't help but think about the intricacies within. However, to the youthful and straightforward Neza, what was more important was what Li Jing did. To a certain extent, he's similar to the great sage. Yin Zhaoge sighed in his heart. My disciple's tribulation was all thanks to Taoist Li, said the Tai cultivated deity slowly after glancing at Muza. Yin Zhaoge smacked his lips and didn't say anything. To Li Jing, Neza was the #1 dangerous person. Without an expert stopping him and the Ru-Yi Golden Pagoda, he wouldn't even dare to show his face in front of Neza. There was no longer any meaning in arguing about who was right or wrong. In Li Jing's heart, the father-son relationship between him and Neza was long gone. It was hard for him to let it go. He was constantly on guard, as if there was a thorn on his back. Of course, it didn't feel good to be on guard against such a dangerous opponent. If there was a chance to remove the thorn on his back, the pagoda-bearing Heavenly King would be more than happy to do so. During the Great Calamity, Taoism had almost been annihilated. The three altars sea-meeting gods fought against the enemies and protected Taoism. In the end, a ruby golden pagoda flew over from afar and restrained his treasure lotus celestial body. As a result, he was surrounded by enemies and almost died on the spot. If the Tai cultivated deity hadn't helped him break out of the encirclement, he would have died for sure. Regardless of whether Neza's dissatisfaction towards Li Jing had faded after so many years, his old hatred was even more unforgettable now that he had a new enemy. Under the intertwining of old and new hatred, the resentment and hatred within the three altars sea-meeting gods had really broken through the horizon. Muza's expression had already calmed down completely. He said mildly, "There's no lack of parents in the world. Third brother has always been disobedient and offended father's dignity. It's fate that he met with a calamity. Father is just cleaning up the family." The Tai cultivated deity said mildly, "Don't argue with me. Why would I argue with you? I'm suppressing my disciple now for his sake, lest he sinks into the sea of blood and can't turn back. If he can retract it freely, I'll let him go now. You'll be the first to suffer. You can escape this calamity because you're not the key person." The Tai cultivated deity suddenly smiled. "However, you're a pretty good catalyst." Yin Zhaoge's heart jolted when he heard this. He recalled some rumors regarding the Tai cultivated deity. Chapter 1641. Yin Zhaoge looked at the Tai cultivated deity with an air of sage-like Taoism and thought of something else. In the Taoism's jade clear direct lineage, there were actually many vicious and merciless people. After entering Buddhism, the wise and compassionate Guanyin Bodhisattva was one of the best when she was still the Zhihong Zhenren. Heavenly Lord Guangqing was not inferior either. However, the most outstanding person was perfected Tai. Apart from being ruthless, this senior mighty figure of the Tao sect could probably be described as thick-skinned and black-bellied. Sometimes, Yin Zhaoge felt that this bigwig of Taoism was truly a role model for his generation. Hearing Taoist Tai's words, Yin Zhaoge's heart jumped. He looked at immortal Tai. "Are you going to sacrifice the pagoda-bearing Heavenly King to the three altars, so that the great god of the sea will be reborn?" Mu Zha's expression changed drastically when he heard that. Perfected Tai smiled. "The one who tied the bell has to solve it." The corners of Yin Zhaoge's mouth twitched slightly. Neza was infected by the resentment and hatred of Bao Lianxian. Although he was revived, his mind was still affected. If he went on a killing spree, it might be completely out of control, and his vicious nature would become thicker and thicker. At that time, it would truly be the birth of a new god of slaughter. He would not recognize his own kin. He would not be a monster nor a demon. He would only be a bloodthirsty killer. However, there might be an exception. It was none other than Heavenly King Li, who had caused all of this back then. He would first transform into a bloodthirsty killing god, and then kill Li Jing to take revenge. The hostility would become stronger and stronger, and it might even reach a new peak. On the other hand, if the first target that Neza encountered before he sank into the sea of blood was Li Jing, the source of his resentment and hatred back then, it might be a different scene after killing him. Although it was also a slaughter that triggered the bloodthirst and ferocity, Neza might fall into a state of blankness for a short period of time. At this moment, he actually had a chance to regain his clarity. However, he had to be careful not to continue to be stained with blood before he returned to normal. The above was merely Yin Zhaoge's conjecture. He did not have complete confidence in whether or not this method would definitely work. However, based on the methods that could be thought of so far, this was the most feasible one. Yin Zhaoge believed that with the Tai cultivated deity's style, he would also make the same deduction and definitely intend to put it into practice. Of course, that was only from the perspective of solving Neza's problem. There were many difficulties. For example, how to ensure that Li Jing was Neza's first target after he escaped. Buddha once said, "If he doesn't go to hell, who will?" Indeed, perfected Tai smiled and said, "Fellow Taoist Li Jing, you have been in the Buddhist sect for so many years. You must know this principle very well. I think you will be willing to sacrifice yourself. Mu Zha's expression was ugly. Don't even think about it. I've already said that I'm not interested in arguing with you. I don't need your permission to do whatever I want to do, Perfected Tai said calmly. Yin Zhaoge crossed his arms in front of his chest. He looked at the Taoist deity speechlessly. Perfected Tai had used a trick to seal Neza. However, after a long time, Neza would eventually break out of the seal. At that time, the great god of the three altars of the sea, who was filled with murderous thoughts and murderous aura, would be unconscious. Perfected Tai might be the first to suffer. He was in a stalemate with Neza, but he was unable to get away to contact the others. At that moment, Muza and the rest chased after Ing Longtu into the Great Wilderness Origin residence. To Perfected Tai, it was undoubtedly a blessing from the heavens. Separated by the Great Wilderness Origin residence, Muza didn't dare to confirm who was inside. However, Perfected Tai could easily confirm Muza's identity. Although he wasn't sure if Muza would summon the pagoda-bearing Heavenly King, he was much more reliable than the others. Taking 10,000 steps back, the ones who came were other Buddhist bigwigs, and not the pagoda-bearing Heavenly King Li Jing. After the seal was broken, Neza went on a killing spree. The Western Pure Lands would suffer the most. Although Perfected Tai was also in danger, the situation was better than him wasting his time here with Neza. No matter how bad the situation was, it couldn't be any worse. Although Perfected Tai's sealing of Neza had almost failed because he helped Ing Longtu and chased Muza and the others away, the situation couldn't be any worse than before. Muza looked at Perfected Tai and the 9 Dragons' Divine Fire Shroud before looking at Yin Zhaoge. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This time, he had contacted his father, Li Jing, and a few other Buddhist bigwigs to provide reinforcements. Only, the Western Pure Lands were delayed due to some matters. In the end, Yin Zhaoge was one step ahead of them. Yin Zhaoge had either captured or killed Muza and the others. Without anyone to lead the way for Li Jing and the others, Li Jing and the others wouldn't be able to find the Great Wilderness Origin residence. Some of the Perfected Tai's plans had failed. However, without Yin Zhaoge's arrival, the Perfected Tai wouldn't be able to continue suppressing Neza in the Great Wilderness Origin residence due to their interference. When Neza escaped, the Perfected Tai would definitely suffer. Those who were chasing after the Great Wilderness Origin residence would also have to face Neza, who had already transformed into a killing god. Now, with Yin Zhaoge's help, the Perfected Tai could continue sealing Neza for a long period of time. They could even think of a way to leave this place and carefully plan their plan of using the pagoda-bearing Heavenly King to attack Neza. They wouldn't have to gamble like the Perfected Tai previously. Muza also knew what the Perfected Tai meant when he said that he was the bait. However, he didn't intend to cooperate with them to lure his father, Li Jing, here. Muza was very grateful to Yin Zhaoge for capturing him. This way, Li Jing and the others wouldn't be able to find this place. You don't intend to listen to me? Don't worry. The Perfected Tai saw Muza's expression and guessed his thoughts. He immediately said plainly, "With little friend Yan's help, I can bring my disciple away from the Great Wilderness Origin residence. Let's just wait at the place where little friend Yan captured you guys." That place could also be considered as the place where Muza and the other Buddhist Bantis stopped before losing contact with the Western Pure Lands. When Li Jing and the others arrived, they would most likely find that universe. I'll let Senior Apprentice Uncle Tai know that my father and master wouldn't be so careless. Muza replied. Senior Apprentice Uncle Tai must have learned about the Immortal Extermination Formation and the current situation outside from little friending. The Three Clear lineage isn't the same as before. Of course, my father and the others would be extremely careful. How would they step into the trap so easily? Speaking of this, Muza didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It was truly unpredictable when it came to fortune and misfortune. If they can't find me, then don't even think about finding my father. Muza snorted. The Perfected Tai didn't argue with him. Instead, he looked at Yin Zhaoge. Little friend Yin, I heard from little friending that he came here with another fellow Taoist. I wonder if you can contact him? I received a message from that fellow Taoist. Only then did I know that junior apprentice brother Ing had gone missing. That's why I came here. Yin Zhaoge smiled. The other fellow Taoists will split up with me and search for junior apprentice brother Ying's whereabouts. If we spend some time, we'll be able to contact him. The perfected Tai nodded. That's for the best. Mu's heart sank as he watched the two of them conversing. Chapter 1642. After hearing the conversation between Yin Zhaoge and the Tai cultivated deity, how could Mu Jia not understand their intentions? He contacted the Dao sect cultivator, who had traveled with Ing Long to previously, and used him as bait to lure Li Jing and the others. From the words of Yin Zhaoge and the others, it could be seen that the cultivation base of that Taoist martial practitioner was most likely similar to Ing Longtu's. Even if he had already pushed open the gate of immortality, he wouldn't exceed the tranquil profound immortal realm at most. It was very likely that he would be a leakless true immortal. Li Jing and the others could not find Mu Jia and the others. They were naturally wary of the top mighty figures of the Dao sect. However, in order to figure out what had happened, they had to spread out and investigate. A perfected immortal, or a mysterious immortal, was undoubtedly much less threatening to Li Jing and the others. After all, not everyone was like Yin Zhaoge. Before arresting him, they might not have been sure if the Taoist martial artist knew anything about it. But since he appeared in the vicinity, he was a potential source of information, and there was a possibility of following the clues. Even if they tried their luck and did not let go of the wrong person, Li Jing and the others would not ignore it. This gave Yin Zhaoge and the Tai cultivated deity a chance. Mu Jia sighed helplessly. He was really a catalyst. It didn't mean that he would be fine as long as he didn't give in and cooperate. As long as he lost contact, he would be able to play the role of a primer. The helpless traveling monk Huyan could only hope that the people on his side would be as careful as possible, as cautious as possible, and as attentive as possible. He hoped that they would be able to see through Yin Zhaoge and the Tai cultivated deity's arrangements and not step into this trap. Looking at the 9 dragons' heavenly fire shield that was filled with milky white flames, Muza felt gloomy. Yin Zhaoge nodded towards the demon monkey that Pan Pan had transformed into. The demon monkey's figure shrunk slightly, still holding on to the divine metal treasure, and suppressing the 9 dragons' divine fire shroud. The demon monkey himself also stood on the 9 dragons' divine fire shroud, standing beside the Tai cultivated deity. Perfected Tai formed a seal with one hand and pointed in the air. The great wilderness Yuan residence that everyone was in changed. Streams of desolate chi circulated and gathered toward immortal Tai and the 9 dragons' heavenly fire shield. Perfected Tai had used the power of the great wilderness origin palace to seal Neza. At this moment, talisman inscriptions appeared and transformed into chains that wrapped around the 9 dragons' heavenly fire shield. As perfected Tai moved, the chains formed by the desolate chi broke one after another. The 9 dragons' heavenly fire shield seemed to be unstable again. However, perfected Tai and monkey were already prepared. With the help of the divine treasure iron, they suppressed the transparent cover again. Rise! Immortal Tai called out softly, and the 9 dragons' divine fire shield flew out of the great wilderness Yuan residence under his guidance. Yin Zhaoge exhaled lightly. Around his body, streaks of transparent, thin thunder light surged, resembling the shadow of a bubble. However, although every bubble of lightning seemed to be feeble and weightless, they were in fact extremely heavy, as if they were stacked on top of each other. The thunder light expanded outwards and gradually formed an independent world, containing Yin Zhaoge, the Tai cultivated deity, the monkey, and the 9 dragons' divine fire shroud within. Let's go. We'll talk about the great wilderness Yuan residence later. Let's focus on the present first, said perfected Tai. Yin Zhaoge continued grabbing Mu Jia as he made a please gesture. Grand Unity Grand Master, please follow me. Although you're of the Jade Clear lineage, you can skip the title of Grand Master. I'm not worthy of it. Perfected Tai turned his head and looked at the world created by Yin Zhaoge's grand illusory spatial thunder. He felt the profundities contained within and praised Yin Zhaoge's age. With such a great talent like you, it's no wonder that my Taoism would rise again. You're being too polite, perfected Tai. Yin Zhaoge exited the great wilderness Yuan residence with perfected Tai and re-entered the void's boundless outskirts. As he walked, he searched for Long Xingquan and Taoist Miao Chen. It wasn't easy to contact them within the void's outskirts. However, they were here to look for Ying Long too. If they were to get separated from Long Xingquan and the others, wouldn't they become a joke if more and more people went missing? As such, Yin Zhaoge, Long Xingquan, and Taoist Miao Chen had specifically agreed on a location to reunite before splitting up. Moreover, the interval between their meetings was rather short. After Yin Zhaoge arrived, he saw Long Xingquan and Taoist Miao Chen appearing. Yin Zhaoge let out a sigh of relief upon seeing them unharmed. When Long Xingquan and Long Xingquan saw that Ying Long too was fine, they were delighted. When they saw perfected Tai, they were extremely surprised. However, they quickly became happy. The more Taoism bigwigs and experts that were still alive, the better it would be for the three clear lineage. After listening to Yin Zhaoge's brief explanation and arrangements, Long Xingquan nodded. Indeed, there's an unusual commotion nearby. For the sake of caution, we tried our best to avoid it. From the looks of it, the Western Pure Lands reinforcements have arrived, and they're currently searching for traveling monk Huiyin and the others. I have no objections to young Heavenly Venerate's plan. Chapter 1643. A green lotus appeared, with lights faintly flickering on the lotus platform. A powerful and lofty aura permeated the surroundings, suppressing Long Xingquan's will. A group of Buddhist Bantis appeared. Moreover, there were many grand heavenly realm experts among them. A majestic Buddhist chant resounded, and a fragrance permeated the void. Within the glass-like Buddha light, the pagoda and the Bodhi forest were faintly discernible, as if a Buddhist country had descended upon the world. However, in the next instant, the scene of the blessed land of joy was destroyed. Two powerful auras approached from afar. Under their attacks, the glass-like Buddha light was no longer pure, and the pagoda and the Bodhi tree collapsed. Yin Zhaoge and the Tai cultivated deity appeared, and calmly looked towards the green lotuses. Under the influence of their auras, the Buddha silhouettes on the green lotuses became clearer and no longer ethereal. The person in the lead was none other than the renowned great Bodhisattva, Samantabhadra. During the ancient era, the Samantabhadra cultivated deity of the Taoism's jade clear lineage, and the Tai cultivated deity was a veteran grand heavenly immortal. After the ancient era, he abandoned the Taoism and entered Buddhism. After attaining enlightenment, he transformed into the Samantabhadra Bodhisattva. Before the Tathagata Buddha had transcended, the Samantabhadra Bodhisattva and the Manjushri Bodhisattva served as the Tathagata Buddha's attendants and guarded the central blessed lands of Saha. After that, Sakyamuni Tathagata transcended, and the future Buddha Maitreya was born. The central blessed lands of Saha underwent a huge change. The Samantabhadra Bodhisattva left and entered the Western Pure Lands. Ever since then, he lived in seclusion and rarely appeared. During this era, during the Great Calamity, the Samantabhadra Bodhisattva was still rarely seen. Only in the recent few hundred years, when the entire Western Pure Lands returned to the world, did the Samantabhadra Bodhisattva reappear. After receiving Muza's report and the Western Pure Lands mediator, Muza's master, the Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, led the team over. Beside the Samantabhadra Bodhisattva stood other Buddhist Bantis. Among them, there was the Luo Yin Buddha, who had also attained enlightenment. However, the first person that attracted Yin Zhaoge, the Tai cultivated deity, and Long Xingquan's attention was a middle-aged man. Although the man's body was also surrounded by a pure Buddhist aura, he was not dressed like a monk. Instead, he was wearing armor and a golden-winged crow crown on his head. He was holding a pagoda in his left hand and a sword in his right. He had a dignified demeanor. It was the pagoda-bearing heavenly king of the heavenly court's divine palace, Li Jing. When Yin Zhaoge and the Tai cultivated deity saw him, joy appeared on their faces, and they both let out a sigh of relief. This action confused Samantabhadra, Narayan Buddha, and Li Jing. However, there was something else that attracted their attention. Perfected Tai sat on his 9 dragons' divine fire shield. The 9 dragons' divine fire shield was clearly extremely restless as it swayed. There seemed to be something suppressed beneath it. On top of the transparent cover, Yin Zhaoge's golden body of the great sage was even supporting it with the Ru-Yi golden cudgel. He was very curious about what was under the 9 dragons' heavenly fire shield. Suspicion appeared on the faces of the Buddhist experts, as if they had thought of something. Back then, perfected Tai seemed to have helped that evil creature break out of the encirclement. Heavenly King Li felt his heart skip a beat. Although that evil creature is seriously injured and cannot be treated, so many years have passed. There might be other possibilities. The bewildered Heavenly King Li looked at Mujia, who was captured by Yin Zhaoge, and became even more anxious. Daoist Tai. Just as Samantabhadra spoke, perfected Tai smiled. Don't be in a hurry, Daoist Samantabhadra. Let's catch up later. Let's settle another matter first. As he spoke, he released the suppression of the 9 dragons' divine fire shield. The demon monkey that Pan transformed into also lifted the Ru-Yi golden cudgel and leaped away. The 9 dragons' divine fire shield was almost instantly overturned. As the flowing fire spread everywhere, a silhouette rushed out from within. He seemed like an Asura that had returned from hell. His malevolent intent permeated the air, making it hard for others to look at him. Samantabhadra focused his gaze and saw that the silhouette belonged to the 3 altars sea meeting's great divinity, Neza. However, compared to before, Neza was different now. The surface of his skin that was originally as white as a lotus root was now blood red. Even his face looked mournful, filled with resentment and malevolence. The 3 altars sea meeting's great divinity stood on the wind-fire wheels. After he appeared, his gaze immediately locked onto the pagoda-bearing Heavenly King, Li Jing. Seeing that, Li Jing felt that something was amiss. Without waiting for him to speak, Neza let out a furious roar. His figure flashed and instantly appeared in front of him. He held the fire-tipped spear horizontally and stabbed it towards his chest. Samantabhadra sighed and did not directly help. That was because after perfected Tai retracted the 9 dragons' divine fire shield, he had already rushed towards him. Fellow Taoist Samantabhadra, we can catch up now, said perfected Tai with a faint smile. On the other side, the monkey also held the Ru-Yi golden cudgel and attacked the Buddhas of the Western Paradise, not giving them a chance to help Li Jing. Yin Zhaoge made a move and saved Taoist Miao Chun, who was captured by a bodhisattva. On the other side, Neza was like a mad tiger. His fire-tipped spear was deadly as he pointed it at Li Jing. Li Jing hurriedly took out the Ru-Yi golden pagoda. Although this treasure was sharp and specialized in restraining Neza's treasure lotus immortal body, Neza, who had ascended to the grand heavenly realm, was different from him when he was at the grand virtual realm in ancient times. Although the Ru-Yi golden pagoda was good, it could only play a decisive role when others were fighting against Neza. When facing Neza alone in Li Jing's hands, he couldn't suppress him. He could only resist for a while. Just like how Neza was reborn in the form of a lotus after his first death tribulation, he chased after Li Jing until there was no way out. Today seemed to be another reincarnation. Samantabhadra glanced at Musa, and a helpless expression appeared on his face. However, he could only try his best to shake off Yin Zhaoge, perfected Tai, and the others along with the other Buddhist Bantis to chase after Neza. At the same time, someone chanted the Buddha's name in the faraway void. A green lotus appeared within the dark universe, and a Buddha sat on the lotus. His body was blue, and his right hand held a treasured pendant on his left shoulder, while his left hand held the Dhyana Mudra. He was the red Inferno Dvajra Lord that Yin Zhaoge had interacted with before. After he appeared, he attempted to receive Samantabhadra and the others. The Western Pure Lands Buddhist Bantis were extremely careful when they came over. They specifically made many arrangements to prevent anyone from ambushing them. Although they were still affected by Yin Zhaoge and the others, they had their own backup plans. However, their efforts were futile. Amidst the deafening roar, a golden violent ape leaped out from another void and disrupted the Samantabhadra Bodhisattvas and the Red Inferno Dvajra Lord's arrangements. After Yin Zhaoge exited the Great Wilderness Origin Palace, other than contacting Long Xingquan and Taoist Miao Chun, how could he forget about his North Ocean clone? His North Ocean clone manifested another golden body of the great sage. demonic chi surged into the skies, and he attacked together with Yin Zhaoge and the others, instantly dragging the group of Buddhist Bantis into a chaotic battle. As he spoke, Yin Zhaoge swung his hand, and Mu Jia was tossed out like a paper plane, landing in the monkey's hand that was holding the Ru-Yi golden cudgel. Within his eyes, a jade-green radiance flickered. At the same time, Yin Zhaoge straightened his back. As he stood on the void, his figure seemed to be swaying slightly. The splendor of divinity condensed above his head, and the 5 chi's unifications appeared. Strands of immortal essence transformed into blurry streams of chi, which circled around his body and gradually condensed into a form. At this moment, Yin Zhaoge's entire body seemed to have transformed into an object that resembled an axe, yet wasn't an axe and a banner. He raised his right hand upwards, as if he was holding up a piece of creation. As he flipped his palm, the entire world of creation seemed to be overturned, and the heavens and the earth seemed to be flipping. Facing the red Inferno Vajra Buddha's all-encompassing red lotus cleansing fire, Yin Zhaoge didn't evade it. Instead, he raised his palm and struck it head-on. Within this palm, the jade-clear primordial heavenly scriptures Origin Heavenly Scripture, Heaven Opening Scripture, and Cyclic Heavenly Scriptures Profundities were contained within. The primordial early Heaven 3 scriptures combined into one, displaying the profundities of the primordial chaos from the very beginning of the world. Boundless profundities and peerless power were manifested at the same time. The void beneath Yin Zhaoge's palm seemed to have returned to its original state of chaos. There was no front, no back, no cold, no heat, no beginning, and no end. Then, it was split apart by the bigwig's divine ability. The chaos shattered, and the earth, water, fire, and wind surged in chaos. Then everything stabilized once again. The 2 polarities circulated, and the principles of all existences manifested at the same time. The world of creation had its initial appearance, and it had the principles to deduce its trajectory. From then on, it continued forward, and the sea changed. The jade-clear primordial early Heaven 3 scriptures combined into one, primordial chaos. The red lotus cleansing fire wasn't an actual fire. Instead, it was an illusory fire that targeted one's heart. However, at this moment, Yin Zhaoge's palm seemed to be reenacting the opening of chaos, and the concept of creation's beginning. The flames had already lost their definition of illusory and actual. A grand heavenly realm jade-clear lineage's comprehension of the earlier Heaven 3 scriptures is only this much. The red Inferno Yamata Buddha was shocked. Where Yin Zhaoge's palm reached, crimson-red fiery rain filled the entire sky. As if it was real rainwater, even though it landed on his palm, it couldn't harm him in the slightest. The flowing fire overflowed and scattered to the side. Yin Zhaoge's palm continued moving upwards, slowly approaching the Yamata itself. Chapter 1645. The red Inferno Vajra Buddha took in a deep breath as he saw Yin Zhaoge's palm seemingly opening the heavens. He was already mentally prepared for Yin Zhaoge's counterattack. Initially, he planned on suppressing Yin Zhaoge with Buddhism's profound profundities and subduing him. However, upon seeing Yin Zhaoge's chaos origin opening strike, the red Inferno Vajra Buddha stopped his previous thoughts and switched to attacking Yin Zhaoge with Buddhism's profound profundities. He no longer had any hopes of subduing or capturing Yin Zhaoge alive. Defeating Yin Zhaoge was already enough. The profundities of Buddhism's profundities merged and transformed into a profoundness that was neither pre-heaven nor post-heaven, clashing against Yin Zhaoge's chaos origin opening strike. The red Inferno Vajra Buddha didn't hold back at all. The golden lamp and Saraira on top of his head shone brightly. Green lotuses accompanied by fragrance filled the void, filling up the space opened up by Yin Zhaoge's palm intent. The Buddha arrived beneath the Vajra and extended his palm towards Yin Zhaoge. When the crimson flames touched the green lotuses, they instantly started burning. No ashes could be seen as the flames burned. Instead, they transformed into true red lotuses that descended from the heavens, forming an ocean of lotuses. The blessed lands of the red blaze Dhamma, Lord manifested as the red blaze Dhamma Lord Buddha descended here, wanting to bury Yin Zhaoge within. Upon seeing this, A smile appeared on the corner of Yin Zhaoge's mouth. His right hand continued moving upwards, and a treasured hammer suddenly appeared in his left hand. Chaos Origin Hammer. The red Inferno Dvajra Buddha's eyelids twitched, and he knew that something was amiss. That treasured hammer was the Black Cloud's Immortal's personal treasure, the Chaos Origin Hammer. The Black Cloud's Immortal had gained fame with it, and its sharpness in killing wasn't inferior to the Lord of Broad Accomplishment's cyclic heavenly seal. After the Black Cloud's Immortal's death, the Chaos Origin Hammer fell into Yin Zhaoge's hands. All these years he had been carefully refining it. When the red Inferno Dvajra Buddha approached, Yin Zhaoge took out the hammer and smashed it towards the red Inferno Dvajra Buddha. The red Inferno Dvajra Buddha was caught off guard and was instantly knocked down by the hammer. Yin Zhaoge didn't show any mercy and continued smashing the Chaos Origin Hammer towards the red Inferno Dvajra Buddha. Namo Amitba. Cracks appeared on the chest of the red Inferno Dhamma Vajrayana golden body. He endured the pain and chanted the name of Buddha. The Sarira above his head shone brightly. Numerous red lotuses gathered and surrounded the red Inferno Dvajra Buddha Lord. The red lotuses bloomed one after another, blocking the primeval hammer. However, the primeval hammer still managed to break through the encirclement and continued to strike at the Buddha. The red Inferno Dvajra Buddha Lord had no choice but to dodge to the side. Even so, he could not prevent the golden lamp on his head from being knocked over by the treasured hammer. Meanwhile, on the other side, Yin Zhaoge's figure rose higher and higher, his palm flipping upwards as he instantly overturned that treasured banner. With the collapse of the treasured banner, the rain of fire was immediately extinguished. The pure land of the red Inferno Dvajra Buddha Lord's Buddhist kingdom also began to collapse. Yin Zhaoge grabbed the treasured banner with his right hand, wielding the Chaotic Origin Hammer with his left as he continued smashing down towards the red Inferno Dhamma Buddha monarch, causing that Buddha to only be able to flee, evading in all directions. Not only was it difficult for immortal essence to break through immortal splendors, but it was also difficult for grand virtual immortals to injure grand heavenly immortals. Grand heavenly immortals often found it difficult to even touch grand heavenly immortals. However, even if Yin Zhaoge only had a condensed flower above his head, most virtual immortals couldn't compare to him. Now that he had the primeval chaos hammer in hand, even the red Inferno Dhamma Buddha Lord would find it hard to block his sharpness. The Samantabhadra Bodhisattva, Narayan Buddha, and the other Buddhist bigwigs frowned when they saw this. However, they each had their own difficult opponents and had no time to deal with them. Moreover, compared to Yin Zhaoge's red Inferno Dhamma Buddha Lord, Li Jing, who was on the other side, was clearly much more dangerous. Although the wishful golden pagoda restrained Neza's treasure lotus immortal body, Li Jing's strength was still much inferior to Neza's. Without anyone's help, the pagoda-bearing heavenly king could not escape misfortune. A universe ring descended from the sky and smashed the wishful golden pagoda down, freeing it from Li Jing's hand. The terrifying spear pierced through the universe and came out of nothingness. It pierced through the heart-protecting mirror in the center of the armor's chest, and then pierced out from his back. The pagoda-bearing heavenly king, Li Jing, lowered his head and looked at the spear that was exposed outside his chest. He wanted to say something, but in the end, he only said one sentence. "Master, you've misled me." As his voice echoed, Li Jing's eyes widened, and his aura disappeared. The wound on his chest that had been pierced by the fire-tipped spear began to split open continuously and spread to the surroundings. His entire body was gradually turning into ashes. Neza looked at Li Jing in a daze and subconsciously let go of the spear in his hand. The hostility between his eyebrows became even more solemn, but his expression was a little blank. The sanguine color in his eyes became even stronger, but his eyes were empty and lifeless. Neza, who had been filled with killing intent and looked like a god of death, stood in the void like a statue. Samantabhadra Bodhisattva waved his demon-subduing pestle and finally forced perfected Tai to retreat. However, it was already a step too late. When he saw Li Jing and Neza, he sighed and continued to walk towards Neza. Perfected Tai pestered him from behind. "My disciple was just momentarily distracted. Fellow Taoist, you don't have a chance to take advantage of him." If you go forward now, you will immediately wake him up. Although you have defeated me, you are not my disciple's match. I naturally know that your disciple is better than you, Samantabhadra Bodhisattva said calmly. However, I can also tell that your disciple has sunk into the sea of blood and will not be able to extricate himself. At that time, he will definitely become everyone's public enemy. Not to mention the direct disciples of the three pure ones, even the Astro Mountain's starry sea, and the 9 netherworlds might not be able to tolerate him, right? Of course, Samantabhadra Bodhisattva didn't intend to fight Neza to the death. He was aware of Yin Zhaoge and perfected Tai's arrangements. He knew that they intended to use Li Jing as a backing to resolve Neza's killing intent and hostility. If he was disturbed, and his plan failed, Neza would turn into a bloody god of death. By then, no force would be willing to see such an existence being active everywhere. In the end, he would definitely be annihilated together. Even the Taoism's 3 clear lineage might not protect him. Fellow Taoist, you've become a Buddha, and you're being compassionate. However, are you going to obstruct my disciple's path and personally create a blood sea Asura? Naturally, perfected Tai wasn't willing to let Samantabhadra Bodhisattva ruin his plan. He hurriedly chased after him to stop him. Bodhisattva, please wait. At the same time, Yin Zhaoge wielded the chaos hammer from afar and slammed it down. Samantabhadra Bodhisattva was helpless. He could only stop and wave the demon-subduing pestle to deflect the chaos hammer. After pausing for a moment, perfected Tai immediately chased after him. The other Buddhist Bantis had their own thoughts. However, they were all obstructed by the 2 golden bodies of the great sage, Long Xingquan, and the others. Predestined fate, predestined fate. Samantabhadra Bodhisattva suddenly stopped and no longer approached Neza. Instead, he changed his direction and pounced towards the golden body of the great sage transformed by Pan. He finally gave up and changed his target to saving his disciple Muzza. The demon monkey transformed by Pan was fearless. With the Rui golden cudgel in his hand, he swept it in all directions. Even Samantabhadra Bodhisattva felt a headache coming on. Perfected Tai ignored Samantabhadra Bodhisattva and flew towards Neza. When he was near Neza, he carefully stopped after some distance and took out a lotus seed pod. Previously, after she recovered from her injuries and established the Crimson Light in Yang Heaven, the goddess of Wudong replaced Fairy Yun Shao to control the immortal vanquishing array. She had been compatible with the void all year round and did not appear in the world. To a certain extent, she was also monitoring the movements of the other forces. With the immortal cultivation, the immortal divine immortal Tao the spirit, the immortal Xing divine formation. Of course, she and the immortal execution formation were the people that the other sects paid the most attention to. After all, they weren't staring at each other face to face. It was hard for the incongruence divine mother to come to a direct conclusion. However, Yin Zhaoge could obtain a lot of first-hand information from her, which was already very valuable. Yin Zhaoge continued forward and approached the universe domain, where the immortal court and the blessed lands of the White Lotus were clashing. He did not continue to go closer. The fight over there had little to do with him. Tian Heaven. To the Yin to Tian Yin Yin sect. Yin to he. Only if he to Dao he it he to he. Dao the. And Dao in all. The immortal extermination formation posed the same threat to the other factions. However, the 2 heretics couldn't bear the consequences. As a result, the immortal extermination formation posed the greatest threat to them. After a long time, the void trembled slightly. Rays of clear swordlights formed a world and enveloped Yin Zhaoge. Within this world, the incongruence divine mother's voice resounded. Zhaoge, why did you come here? I'm here to discuss something with you, divine mother, answered Yin Zhaoge. Where did the joy come from, and where did the sorrow come from? Asked the incongruence divine mother. Yin Zhaoge told her about the good news. Our 2 Jade Clear senior bigwigs, the Tai cultivated deity, and the 3 altars oceanic group divinity have returned. Only, the 3 altars oceanic group divinity's situation is still a little inconvenient. During the ancient era, the incongruence Divine Mother wasn't on good terms with the Jade Clear lineage. She agreed with Yin Zhaoge. That's right. It's worth celebrating. Other than that, there's another matter. Yin Zhaoge told her about his suspicions regarding the Western Pure Lands. I wonder if Divine Mother has noticed any abnormal movements regarding the Orthodox Buddhism. The incongruence Divine Mother didn't answer immediately. Instead, she pondered for a while before saying, perhaps there's something worth paying attention to. Shang Na and Xiao had entered the Western Pure Lands twice, and the time gap between them was extremely short. She said slowly, I heard you mentioning that the Western Pure Lands might be plotting something. Now that I think about it, this matter might not be normal. Yin Zhaoge raised his head slightly. Shang Na and the Exalt Xiao? If he could not defeat Mahamayuri within a certain period of time, Mahamayuri would naturally emerge as the victor when the time was up. Furthermore, after that battle, the three golden bodies of the great sage were still unable to fuse together. They needed a long time to recuperate. Even if he could fuse them again, who knew how long it would be before he could refine the earthly essence stone again? It could be said that Mahamayuri would be a huge threat to the orthodox Taoism for a long time to come. During this period of time, if the old peacock wanted to make things difficult for Yin Zhaoge and the others, the great sage equaling heavens wouldn't be able to stop him again. Of course, the immortal extermination array could be used, but the problem was that it was the capital of the orthodox Tao sects to balance the few Tao ancestors. The greatest significance of its existence was to a large extent, control the enemies that the Tao sect was facing at the moment to be below the Tao realm. Apart from that, before the great sage equaling heaven could return to his peak, Yang Jian would most likely have to face Mahamayuri head-on. If he couldn't withstand it, there was nothing more to say. However, even if he could, Taoism's current pinnacle figures would be distracted. By then, the Dipankara ancient Buddha, Tao Lord Luya, and the others would inevitably unleash their might. Beneath the Tao realm, the old peacock was undoubtedly the orthodox Taoism's greatest threat. In fact, it was an actual threat. Fortunately, regardless of whether Kong Xian was someone with principles or someone with high status, he wouldn't make a move if there wasn't a sufficient price like the Sakya Saraira. No matter if it was the battle between the two heretics, the battle between the demon race and the Western Pure Lands, or even the battle between the orthodox Taoism and the nine underworlds, he wouldn't interfere in any of them. Even during the battle for the immortal extermination array, where he was defeated by the great sage equaling heavens, he didn't have the intention to regain his reputation. A Sakya Saraira in exchange for him to make a move. He wouldn't go easy on his opponent, but he wouldn't be responsible for the outcome. As such, from a certain perspective, not only did he pose a threat to the orthodox Taoism, but he also posed a threat to the other forces, including the Western Pure Lands where Kong Xian had been residing. However, it was clear that he wanted something. While he was using his own strength as a bargaining chip to seek for gains, he was also easily restricted by others. Thus, he did not attract the Tao ancestors to attack him. As the number of Buddha's relics in his hands increased, Mahamayuri's situation gradually became more and more difficult, because everyone had to start considering how to restrain him. Chapter 1650. The Wuxia apricot yellow flag could block Mahamayuri's attack. However, it could only passively protect one side. Mahamayuri still had the upper hand. However, this treasure was still extremely important to the orthodox Taoism. After all, even without the great sage equaling heavens, they still had Yang Jian, Sua Mingzhang, Feng Yinsheng, and the others. All these years Yang Jian, the Southern Extremity Longevity Emperor, and the other Taoism bigwigs had been searching for this treasure. Feng Yinsheng, the North Star Emperor, and the other Taoism bigwigs had been searching for it. Unfortunately, they hadn't found anything yet. I'm in charge of the Immortal Extermination Formation, and can't be distracted. I can only entrust the Western Pure Lands matters to you, the incongruence Divine Mother said. If the Amitabha Buddha makes a move, I'll try to deal with it. Yin Zhaoge nodded. This is the most important matter. Thank you, Divine Mother. Right, When you're trying to interfere with the Shakyamuni's matters, you have to be wary of the other party's ulterior motives, said the incongruous Divine Mother. I understand. Thank you, Divine Mother, for your reminder. Yin Zhaoge cupped his hands towards the fading green sword light. During the battle 100 years ago, when they fought for the immortal extermination formation, Yin Zhaoge and the Taoism's people acted as if they were lying. While they had already obtained the Six Soul Banner from the Tishida Palace, they still acted as if they were looking for the Six Soul Banner to conceal their intentions of seizing the immortal extermination formation. In the end, Yin Xiaoferi sacrificed the Six Soul Banner and obstructed the Tao ancestors for an instant, allowing Yin Zhaoge and the others to escape after obtaining the immortal extermination formation. In the end, the immortal extermination formation fell under Taoism's control, allowing them to single-handedly turn the situation around since the Great Calamity. If the orthodox Taoism could do such a thing, other forces like the Western Pure Lands could naturally do it too. Investigating the opponent's true intentions and concealing one's own was an important aspect of the game. Because of Shang Na and the Exalt Xiao, Yin Zhaoge and the others thought of Lord Ananda, the Shakyamuni, and the Mahamuni. However, this might be a smokescreen released by the Western Pure Lands to mislead Yin Zhaoge, Taoism, or the demon race and the 9 underworlds. Under the disguise, the orthodox Taoism true intentions might be something else. Yin Zhaoge even suspected that this might be a trap laid down by the Western Pure Lands, waiting for someone to step into it. Should I think of a way to leak the news to Mahamayuri? Yin Zhaoge pondered. If the news was leaked to Mahamayuri, it would be convenient to verify the authenticity of this matter. At the same time, it would also give the Western Pure Lands a huge headache. Both of them were good at hiding their tracks, but they didn't dare to follow too closely in order to avoid the possibility of being discovered. After receiving Yin Zhaoge and Feng Yunqing's message, the Southern Extremity Longevity Emperor and Gao Han didn't let their guard down. Instead, they continued observing the first batch of Buddhist Bantis that left the Western Pure Lands. This was to prevent the other party from turning the fake into the real, and the real into the fake, turning the fake into the real, and the real into the fake. Only when one side had concrete clues would it be the time for them to unite and truly exert their strength. After walking for a while, Feng Yunqing frowned slightly. Something doesn't seem right. It seems to be the aura of the demon race. Yin Zhaoge also noticed the problem. The opposite of being good at hiding themselves was that both of them had outstanding perception abilities. Mahamayuri couldn't possibly inform the Rock of 10,000 Cloudy Miles about this, right? Asked Feng Yunqing. Southern Extremity Longevity Emperor and Gao Han have no reason to do so. Yin Zhaoge stroked his chin. In the past, Ananda perished because of the Maitreya Buddha. Now that the Western Pure Lands, Shang Na, and the Exalt of Xiao are making their moves, the blessed lands of the White Lotus might be alerted as well. In fact, the blessed lands of the White Lotus might have made some gains before the Western Pure Lands managed to make such progress. After guessing for a while, Yin Zhaoge laughed. At this point, everyone is already paying attention to each other. It's getting harder and harder for them to make any secret moves. All sorts of harvests would have to be fought over. This seems to prove from another angle that the second batch of people from the Western Pure Lands is the correct target, said Feng Yunqing. Yeah, we can inform the Southern Extremity Longevity Emperor and the others now. Yin Zhaoge nodded. After receiving Yin Zhaoge and Feng Yunqing's communication, the Southern Extremity Longevity Emperor and Gao Han gave up on following their previous targets and came to meet up with them. At the same time, Gao Han also tried to contact Mahamayuri secretly. Within the Western Pure Lands, within Mahamayuri's Buddhist kingdom, tranquil glazed radiance shone, and 5-colored divine radiances circulated. He sat on a green lotus and finally made a move. The green lotus flew up and carried Mahamayuri out of the Western Pure Lands. His actions were open and aboveboard. No one obstructed him. Only the Samantabhadra Bodhisattva appeared once again. Are you trying to stop me, Taoist? Asked Mahamayuri plainly. That's not the case. I'm on the same path as Mahamayuri. The Samantabhadra Bodhisattva shook his head and answered. Mahamayuri didn't mind. He only nodded. All right. The two Buddhas left. Within the Western Pure Lands, the Dipankara ancient Buddha looked at their departing silhouettes. His expression remained calm, and he remained silent. In the end, Mahamayuri was still alerted. Beside the Dipankara ancient Buddha, the white Xiong paragon let out a sigh. It's fine. There are gains and losses, the Dipankara ancient Buddha said. This is a price we have to pay for taking such a risk. Fortunately, we can make use of the situation to our advantage. The white Xiong paragon said. This disciple will contact the Bodhisattva of Guanyin and the others. Go. The Dipankara ancient Buddha closed his eyes. While Yin Zhaoge and Feng Yunxing were waiting for their comrades to arrive, the green lotuses in front of them gradually slowed down. Everyone was slowly approaching a concealed stellar vortex. After being illuminated by the radiance of the Buddhist Bhantis, the concealed stellar vortex was completely exposed. The stardust turned into countless streaks of light that scattered in all directions. At the center of the vortex, a wasteland slowly appeared. The barren yet thick land was currently hovering within the dark void. Ice had already formed on the surface of the soil, and it seemed to be dead silent. The indestructible Vajra Buddha and the other Buddhist Bhantis looked at the soil with different expressions. Some of the latecomers didn't feel anything. Most of them were curious and yearning. As for the indestructible Vajra Buddha and the other Buddhist bigwigs, their gazes were filled with complex emotions. Master, is this the place where Ananda Bhanti resided? Someone beside the indestructible Vajra Buddha asked. Yes and no. The indestructible Vajra Buddha said slowly. This place used to be a part of the central blessed lands of Saha. At the beginning of the ancient era, during the Great Tribulation of Buddhism, this scene was created. For a moment, all the Buddhists present were silent. I didn't expect this place to be preserved until now, even though it's already in a declining state. The indestructible Vajra Buddha shook his head. His expression returned to normal, and he walked into the ruins. After he succumbed to the devil, his original inclination towards the Jade Clear's interpretation of peerless, from nothingness to existence, had gradually shifted towards the Prime Clear's interpretation of from existence to nothingness, similar to Yu Yi and Feng Yunsheng. However, in Nie Jingshan's legends, he and Yu Yi were classified as the same species as Yin Zhaoge. This immediately touched Yin Zhaoge's sensitive nerves. He had no choice but to pay attention. Nie Jingshan was right if he didn't make such a strict distinction. He, Yin Zhaoge, had precisely started with the peerless heavenly scripture of the Jade Clear lineage. Due to many reasons, Yin Zhaoge had always kept this matter a secret and covered it up. Earlier on, he had used the dim radiant Emperor Yin Tianxia's dim radiant 12 arts as a cover. However, this could only be used in the early stages. Due to the Jade Clear primordial heavenly lord of primordial beginnings transcendence, the path of those who came after him became simple to a certain extent. There would always be people of shocking talent among those who came later, touching upon the principles of peerless infinity. However, they had to continuously climb upwards, and in the end, they would all return to the same destination through different means, all belonging to the Jade Clear scripture, the peerless heavenly scripture. This was where the dim radiant Emperor Yin Tianxia's awkwardness lay. If he couldn't obtain the peerless heavenly scripture, it would be extremely difficult for him to continue climbing upwards by himself. In fact, he might even be unable to advance any further. Nie Jingshan's uniqueness originated from his earlier heaven nascent form, which Yin Tianxia didn't possess. Yin Zhaoge continued climbing upwards without stopping. It was fine for him to push open the immortal door, or even pass through the pure profound tribulation, and become a tranquil profound immortal. However, if he continued climbing upwards step by step, from 3 Chi's fused aura, to 4 Chi's fused aura, to 5 Chi's unification, ascending to grand void, no matter what, this couldn't be explained with the dim radiant 12 arts. Fortunately, Yin Zhaoge had long since obtained the grand clear lineage's Tai Fist. To a certain extent, the Tai Fist had also touched upon the secrets of peerless infinity. The three clear lineages, as one, was never an empty statement. Only, the Tai Fist's concept was different from the peerless heavenly scripture and the chaos-extinguishing origin scripture. However, this was already another layer of concealment. On this basis, Yin Zhaoge had further gathered the last 9 scriptures of the jade-clear primordial heavenly scriptures and cultivated them. Although he couldn't obtain the peerless heavenly scripture by reversing the 9 scriptures, the complete concept of the same lineage was another layer of concealment.